rangi, he rā maumahara a parihaka I tēnei rangi. And tō mātou hononga ki Taranaki, ko te pai mārire. Tō tiakinga maramatanga I te atua, mō mātou kuini, a nā wai hono I te pō, mō te kahui ariki, mō ngā tinana I mā wiwi ana, tainoa ki a mātou katoa I te rānei. Ai, nau te kororia, nau te kororia, nau te kororia, rire, rire, hau, pai mai rire. And that karakia is in reference to when Tawhiao went to Taranaki and he met with the two tohunga down there and they created the pai mārire. There are two different versions, but I reference that karakia today as we remember what happened at Parihaka today, the 5th of November. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, Damarie. Thank you. Okay, everybody. We'll call for apologies first. I see we have a full house today, but we do have Monty and Roger Gordon online. So welcome, everybody. I'd like to ask for any disclosures of members' interest this morning. I'm not aware of any. No one's putting their hand up. Any late items this morning? Excellent. Right, we'll move on to the confirmation of order of the meeting. Who'd like to move that? So Lou's going to move that down. Marie's going to second. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. All right, we've got 3 sets of minutes to confirm this morning, so we'll go through each one individually. So we've got the minutes from the 1st of October. It's on page 7. Can I have a move and a second if everyone's happy that they're true and correct, please? Claire's going to move. Andrew's going to second. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. October the 14th on page 12. Again, can I have a move and a second if we're happy with those? Bruce is going to move those. Delmarie's going to second. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Lastly, the 22nd of October, which is on page 16. Everyone happy with those minutes? Can I have a mover, please? Roger's going to move those and Lou's going to second. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, we'll move into our first item this morning, which is our long-term plan project update, which is on page 21. We've got Melissa to join us. Morning, Melissa.
Morning.
Oh.
So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the long-term plan and how everything is tracking. So as you'll be familiar, we are currently in the process of developing or working through the finance strategy and the budgeting process and what that translates to in terms of rates increases over the life of the long-term plan. You'll notice in the report the status of these 2 items being the budgeting process and the finance strategy monitor. So the reasons for this being noting that our current financial position, we're currently quite constrained, but also noting that if we don't meet the deadlines for or the objectives at each of these workshops, it will put significant pressure for us to meet the 17th of December milestone, which is adopting a draft budget. And if we don't meet that, that will obviously have flow-on impacts in terms of meeting our legislative deadline, adopting a long-term plan by 30 June. So just wanted to make a particular note of that. In terms of workshops coming up, so next week we've got a workshop focused on the finance policies and we'll be having our first touch point with you around the communications approach and key messages. Happy to take questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, questions? That's probably very straightforward, actually. Looking forward to the next workshop. No? Okay. If there's no questions at all, Philip's got a question.
Well, yeah, it's not really, there's a few questions here from the community board that we've got, so I'll email those through to you and then it can be answered for them. So,
yeah, happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, we've got a recommendation on page 21 that we receive the report. Can I move in a second, please? Andrew's going to move, Mike Pettit's going to second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Melissa. That was short and sweet. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is our District Growth Quarterly Report on page 24. Wayne is in the room. And Tony's coming to the table as well. Excellent. Thanks, guys. I'll hand over to you.
All right. Nā koutou katoa, Mayor, Chair, Councillors. Firstly, I'm just pleased to bring this quarterly report to you. It's a revised template, so the team have been working on it, taking in some advice that we've received from elected members and just, I guess, removing some of the duplication that was in the previous report. It was getting up to around 60 odd pages, so we've pretty much cut that down in half to some extent. We have changed up some of the bar graphs to reflect quarterly comparisons with the previous year, and there's some trend information that's shown in the back in the appendix side. So hopefully be interested in any feedback that you've got. There's further refinements to come, but that's probably the first point I'd make. So just moving into the report, just dealing firstly on page 24 of your agenda there. The resource management reforms, we're all pretty familiar with the various phases of the reforms. In terms of the phase 2 fast track approval bill, the Environment Select Committee have reported back with some significant changes. Probably the most important of these is the which is subject of our and many other submissions, is a transfer of the final decision making from the Minister to the expert panels. And of course, there's a list of 149 projects on the fast track approval bill. 3 are within Waipa. The Cambridge Pairiri, which now, as I understand, has got the Minister for the Environment approval to lodge their application. So we're expecting that Cambridge Pairiri application to come in with the notices of requirement shortly. And there's, of course, Southern Links and SL1 close to Hamilton City, a growth area. So those are the 3 areas within our area. Other things to report, as the report notes, there's an expert advisory group, so it's been appointed by the government to drive the process, and they're developing a blueprint for replacing the RMA, and they're going to report back before Christmas. So that's a pretty daunting sort of task for them. So we'll wait to see what comes of that, and that'll inform the ministers and the government and cabinet's views on shaping the RMA up for next year. The next section is around the building reform update. So this is another area of reform. So we're dealing with waters, we're dealing with emergency management, we're dealing with RMA, and now going to deal with building. So I've given a bit of update there about what that reform is about. I guess the key thing there is whilst we don't have too many problems in making minor dwellings easier to build and increasing the uptake of remote inspections and mandating the acceptance and use of overseas products, providing the checks and balances in regard to that. But we do want, in terms of principles, we want more affordable and quality homes. We want stronger economies. We want to lift our both New Zealand and Waipa's economies, and we want to create more jobs, or aspirations of the government in terms of what's driving some of these reforms. So the key thing, though, I guess in the report, it talks about investigating a new building consent authority structure. The scope of building work exempts from a building consent, liability settings, and the role of private insurers. So what we understand there's a discussion document coming out from government shortly on this, and we will be able to provide input into that through submission process to the government to inform the minister next year. That will inform any review of the Building Act. We had a meeting with the mayor and chief executive, and self attended with Minister Chris Pink and Barbara Kuriger last week, and we talked about the building reform process, and we provided some information in terms of what we support and don't support in relation to the various webinar and media releases that are going on in regard to that. It was a very cordial meeting, and the Minister was very pleased and very open-minded to receive our commentary regarding how we're performing, and we gave him some statistics from Waipa in regard to compliance. And just a couple I'll throw out there right now. 99.31% of all our building consent applications were issued within 20 working days, an average of 10.3 working days, and that's over a 3-year period. So that's pretty good. And we consistently sit around 2 to 3 working days for inspections. So we didn't see a significant problem in terms of any structural change in terms of our building system, in terms of elevating it to a regional processing unit or any national unit. But we are always looking for efficiencies, and any changes in that regard, we'll have a look at in terms of any discussion documents. So the Minister received all that information with an open mind. So that's probably all I'll just say on the building reform update. Just moving through, the next section is the district plan program. So I'll just take that's on page 26 of your agenda. I guess I'll just take all of that as read. It has the council and private plan changes in there. Page 29 is the resource consents update there. That's 29 on your agenda, yes. Again, I'll just take that as read. The consents of interest, we still don't have a date on when the submission period for the waste energy plant is going to be notified. We are in contact with the EPA regarding that. I was hopeful I might be able to confirm that today, but there's no update on the EPA's website in regard to that. So we were anticipating that would be early November for that, for a 30 working day period, closing early before Christmas. So we anticipate it should be shortly, but I just don't have that date.
Thank you, Wayne. I'll just take a couple of questions if that's all right, because
Yes.
it's probably related to this matter. So Philip and then Mike.
Yep, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Wayne and Tony, for your report. So Newcombe Road, the submissions closed yesterday, so I would have thought there'd be quite a few. Is there going to be submission hearings and deliberations and things like that for us that will be part of?
That was my next point. So yes, absolutely. The most up-to-date information I got this morning, because the submission period only just closed on the 4th of November after an extension of generally 1 week that we gave. We have approximately, these are still being tallied, but we have approximately 350 submissions. Once all the submissions are recorded, submitters will be acknowledged. There's some and advising of next steps. So the submitters they're getting acknowledgement of their submission, and they'll be advising of next steps. The hearing is likely to be next year.
Yep. So those hearings will be involved in that.
It'll be independent hearing commissioners that will be set, presumably with a joint hearing process with the Waikato Regional Council to hear both the Waipa and the Waikato Regional Council's consents. Independent hearing commissioners.
So just a bit further to that, if the submission had outlined that they wish to be heard, they will be able to present through at the hearing when it's scheduled. So if they've ticked on the submission form that they're willing to be heard, that they will have the ability to have their say in front of those independent commissioners.
Thank you, Tony. Mike?
Yeah, just a question through the chair. A question around C10, page 32. Just how do we get on with the ongoing private maintenance, asking for the request for the booms to be done by APL, etc.?
So we sent them probably about December last year we sent them a list of caveats with regards to that. And we were wanting a response back to those points. A lot of them were around accepting that if it was to be them maintaining this, if we needed to come through and repair our services within those berms, that we would be repairing it back to grass, and it's up to them to continually maintain. We've not heard any sort of formal response back to our list of caveats. So that's it was a couple pages long in terms of those bullet points that we had represented, and we're expecting a thorough response to that to help us have the assurance that they will take it and make sure they're meeting all the right requirements.
Right, thanks for that. And just the report overall, you sort of asked for some comment. Absolutely superb, really, really good, really easy to understand. Great to see some historical stuff in there. Love the line graphs, the bar graphs. So yeah, superb job.
Thank you. One more question, Bill.
Kia ora, thanks, Liz. On page 27, you talk about the draft plan 23 on Papakainga. And I note in there that you've said that section 32 report and final set of draft provisions is to be provided to the JMA partners, but no mention of mana whenua. Why is that? Why shouldn't mana whenua receive the same set of final draft provisions?
Yeah, look, I don't see any reason why not. So I can go and get that confirmation. The information can be widely available. It's just part of the preparation for the plan change. Presumably, if we're making the JMA partners aware of the information, it's similar to making, in our view, mana whenua information. So we can provide that. So we've no issue on that. I'll talk to the team about that and just make sure that happens.
Just a bit further on that, because I understand the need to wait for the central government to make determinations about this, but we are a little bit behind schedule as council in terms of the promises about getting this across the line when the Better Off funding came through to council. So it's pretty important that we are talking and we're having these consultations to let mana whenua know, and not just the JMA partners, because it was with mana whenua that this came through. So it came through, if we remember the history of this, it came through the ICC. The iwi Consultative Committee brought it through to council in terms of Better Off funding.
Thank you, Bill. I'll let Kirsty comment and then we'll go to Claire.
So through the chair, the team through James Feshu have connected with mana whenua and have previously reported through to Ngā Iwi Tōpua Waipa. So perhaps, Wayne, we can follow up with the team as to whether that is programmed. I know that there is a Ngā Iwi Tōpua Waipa meeting scheduled for the 18th of November is their next meeting. If it's possible to report through to there. Thank you.
Claire and then Lou.
Thanks. So I just want to give some feedback on the change of reporting. Wayne, I do love it. I think it's really pleasing. So thanks, that you've done a great job. I love the DC's analysis and also the quarterly comparison, of the bar graphs. And I like the way the updates of the gross sales has been sort of presented, because it's a lot shorter here. We did used to get the percentage of the growth cell that's either been developed or is remaining to be developed. It'd be quite good to have that, I think. Yeah, because that gives us an idea of how things are progressing.
It's something that's been on my mind around how we present that percentage, because the way you present it can be presented through different means of percentage. It can be your assumed HEUs, it can be assumed land, it can be, and given that some developers have mixed typologies, it can be quite difficult to work out what that percentage is. So it is in the back of our minds as to how to best represent that, but it might not be a fair, accurate representation of the percentage that's actually developed. If you look to have, some developers may wish to go further dense than what was presented in the HEUs. So we are trying to think of an appropriate way that would represent both the HEUs and the land that's remaining.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that. Good to know. Yeah, what's behind all that. I do have some other questions about specific parts of the
Yeah, should we
reports,
if we let Wayne finish, well, let's go through the report. Lou, is yours question around plan
Well,
changes?
It was just simply, I was going back to the building consents and just a couple of issues that really I'd like to raise with. They were going to establish a national single point of contact for all building consents. This is what they're proposing. And over and above that, facilitating voluntary consolidation or consolidation into regional consenting authorities, which to me means that we are going to see one building code implemented all over the country. That we cannot have anything specific to our local district. That's sort of one of the things that I'd looked at and thought that we do have specific things that we actually put in as a council sometimes with building codes that we need to have, and we again have that removed. I just felt that should be developed at this stage of the conversation.
Thank you, Lou. Now, we'll get Wayne to, as you're working through the report, when we get to that section, to reply to that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll just quickly traverse through the rest of the report. I guess on page 30, the team have talked about the growth and regulatory development and the status update of each of the growth cells. So if you've got any specific questions in regard to that, Tony's here to talk about where we're at with each of these growth areas in particular, and similar in terms of the development contributions. There's a snapshot there for the quarter. We've issued 68 DCs. We've charged 2.21 million. We've received 3.7 million in the quarter, and we have an outstanding of around $71.52 million for development. Well, it's actually probably best to say that DC payments have yet to be received as opposed to being outstanding. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's important terminology because they're part of a subdivision process, and DCs come in at a time of 224 in particular through the process or via way of the development agreement. I guess just moving into the building compliance area, yeah, with the new graphs there show comparisons with the previous quarters. It's interesting to see that we're up 8% the same quarter in 2023 in terms of numbers of building consents issued of 236 compared to 218 of the previous quarter of 23. Down on the numbers of CCCs, but up on the numbers of new dwellings of 11%. So 92 new dwellings as compared to 73 in the previous quarter of 2023. And also the value is up 19%, got 83.1 million versus 67.7 in 23. So hopefully, we're seeing a pickup of the economy moving into 2025. Just in the trend information, there's an Appendix 4, which shows you trends over previous years. Picking up on Lou's point, yes, I think it's important that we made this point to the Minister. It would be useful to have similar technology. We use Objective, which we previously, and a number of councils are using Objective as a electronic tool for people to lodge applications and for us to process the applications, but not everybody in New Zealand is using that, and this makes it hard to get some uniformity in regard to that. We all work on the same building code requirements, so yeah, we expect compliance whether you're in Waipa or Waikato or wherever the same. What we are seeing though, it may be you're referring to the district plan process where it is, if it is becomes a regional document, you can lose some of the localism regarding some of the standards within a district plan. So we've got those parallel changes or reform processes that have been promoted on the councils. So yeah, I think that's probably the point that I'll make on that. Just some other points. I guess I'll just take the monitoring enforcement on page 36 as read, as well as the animal control section 38 and environmental health 39. There's information there from the District Licensing Committee on page 40 of the agenda. And the final statistics there for it's just the first quarter of this year, page 57. Other than that, I'll just take the recommendation on page 24.
Thank you, Wayne. Right, questions we've got Philip and then Dale Marie.
Yeah, just a couple of small questions. The archaeological findings some time ago now, it'd be well over a year, how they, is that progressing or is that finalised or just two quick questions, that's one of them.
Yeah, so C3, there was the discovery of the skull that has gone through now its Archaeological Heritage Authority application. So we've received that authority and can proceed with the works with the outfall structure. So that was, I think, back in January, we found that and did the notification protocol under the Cultural Impact Assessment and the Heritage Authority requirements. So followed those processes to the T. We then had mana whenua out on site sifting the remainder of the pile that was left open, and that stopped the works while that process went through. The wider site also has a Heritage Authority owned by council in terms of the subdivision that's going to precede that, because we've got some works associated with the collector road and the wetland and stormwater devices in there. We own that Heritage Authority at the moment. So my understanding is that the archaeologist has been out onto site and with guidance from mana whenua on the appropriateness of how much is excavated, what we've found through there. That process is starting to conclude and the archaeologist is looking to complete their report. So 2 authorities have been accepted and received and processed, and they're just in the process of finalising those points.
Okay, cool. And the other little question, you said the consents are increasing. Is it that's the number of consents is increasing, so that will help with the demand. Will that help with DCs as well, because the demand for proper new homes will start increasing? Purchases of sections and things like that, so that should help with DC collections and things as well.
So potentially, if they're new builds on subdivisions, the DC's already been applied to the initial subdivision consent. So it depends if it's a secondary dwelling. We do charge through the DC policy a half HEU depending on the catchment. So yes, in some regard it will help in some ways, but it's not probably a one-for-one building consent application. It's just that there will be some that will be charged DCs and others that might not.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's right. So if it's new subdivisions, yep. Good point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, Dale Marie and then Claire and then Lou.
Kia ora kōrua. Yep, echoing the formatting is cool. Old administrators love that stuff. I've got a couple just in regards to the hui with Barbara. Those questions that I sent through to Wendy, they didn't end up in front of Barbara by any chance? Nope, I can tell. The other one I wanted to know was, one, can I please have a print of A3 of all those maps that you got? Reason why, I've been asked by 4 different people around how DCs work. One of them was a community board chair, not the lovely one behind here, our other lovely one. And I'm wondering whether her and I are able to have a little workshop with you, Tony, to understand DCs better. From what she said, and she sort of had a go at me. Why didn't I know? I said, oh, hold on. How about I get a hui with Tony, the man who knows about this stuff, and we can understand this better. So I think that was all that was from me. Yeah, so kia ora kōrua.
Yeah, happy to provide those maps, and they are in our DC policy as well, with specifics for the funding areas as well. So based on the actual demand of the reserves coming through. So it does go down into different reserves that we're collecting for. But I will also highlight in the DC policy as well that we are looking to enable Māori land and Māori land general to be developed as well.
Just a quick, the reason why I want them printed out is the amount of people that are moaning about things, and then they can see where the growth is happening so that they can make some connections. Yeah, kia ora.
Thanks, Dale.
Can I just follow that up? Can you just explain what the questions were relating to? To Wendy that you said to Barbara? What were they relating to?
Were in regards to meeting with the minister around defining what is a housing development with an incineration plant in it, like they're doing down in Waimati.
Oh, so okay.
So Wendy's got a full email.
We'll just go to Kirsty quickly because I think it was relating to a different committee.
So just through the chair, the questions I understand that you provided to Wendy, Councillor Dale Marie, were to be directed to Barbara and Minister Louise at a meeting of the Housing Subcommittee that was to be held yesterday, but unfortunately was cancelled. And we'll be looking to reconnect with them. Kia ora.
It's all good, Wayne. Okay, Claire.
Okay, thanks. I've got about 3 questions. The first one is about C2. So that's on page 31. Right at the end, it says there's been no formal update from the Ministry of Education regarding the planned Cambridge West School. So I'd be keen to get some updates on that to understand what's happening and if there are any timeframes, because my understanding is that that would actually, if there was a certainty about when that was happening, it would actually stimulate a bit more uptake of new housing being purchased there. Yeah, so I'm keen on that. I presume you still don't have an update at the moment.
No formal update, no, unfortunately. I will reach out to my sort of colleague at MOE to see if I can get something more formal, but it's been pretty quiet on that front.
Yeah, look, the minister, when we were at Future Proof, indicated that not all is lost. Chris Bishop met at Future Proof a couple of weeks ago. There's lots of things that are probably in train, but no formal. I guess, yeah. But it'd be great if you can follow up in your analysis as well. Oh, Susan.
Yeah, I'm just finalising a letter to the minister following up on discussions that we had around the actual school. He's keen to take it offline. He indicated it had some pretty comprehensive discussions with Erica Stanford about different forms and mechanisms potentially funding schools. So we're just finalising a final letter to him, so I'll keep you abreast of any response I get.
And it looks like Mike might have an update too.
Hey, I need just to add to the ministry at the moment are going around the schools in Cambridge and proposing boundary realignments for zonings and things, and that's because the school is on hold. So the local ministry office has got no more news than the rest of us have. But they are trying to accommodate, because there is actually capacity in Cambridge at the moment for children in some of the bigger schools. So there's no immediate issue with capacity. There's an issue with what Claire's alluding to, that maybe people intended to buy a section in a place that now has no school on the immediate horizon. But of course, I think the resource consent is still good to 2031. So
Yeah, it's still designated for that purpose. Yeah, and as you say, it would need to lapse, or they would need to notify us that they were looking to lapse or not activate that. Yeah.
Mike, your capacity issue is actually a really important thing for us to understand, and I guess that we hadn't received or hadn't known about that before. So I guess there's not a huge crisis looming in the short term, but certainly medium to long term, that could be quite quite a different situation. Yeah. Claire, and then I've still got to get to Lou.
Yeah. So just on that school thing.
Oh, sure. If it's related to
just at the college, my daughter's actually a teacher there, but they're actually at total capacity. They have no capacity left at Te Amiru College. And, and the problem that they're running into, there's nothing actually that they can actually push out to. Otahonga can't cope, and they have a major problem. So that's just something that,
Thank you.
A similar thing that you were saying, Mike.
Thanks, Lou. That's good. All right.
So I'm really keen to make sure that the development that we're wanting to happen in C2, given that we've got that fantastic DC analysis sheet now, we can see which growth cells have the potential to reduce our debt the most. Yeah, and so if there is messaging in the community that there is capacity for schools, so don't hold off just because you don't know where that one in C2 is going to be. There's plenty of places, like that would be quite useful. I had heard that people were not buying sections because they thought there was an issue. Yeah, so that's all.
They've got an amazing playground there now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just to get it formal though, so it's not just he said, she said.
Yeah.
I think your idea, Tony, going to the ministry and get something definitive, and then team up with Lisa and getting a definitive com out, and then you'll actually have the facts from the ministry.
Yeah, thanks. So the other question I had was on page 37, and the enforcement team said there was 10 CRMs concerning homeless people sleeping or living rough in the district. So while I appreciate that it's not council enforcement staff that need to come up with a solution, but now that we're aware of it, like, do we have a strategy? Is there some kind of coordinated action that might be underway in the community already that we don't know about, or maybe we should have a stronger involvement with, or something? You know, like, I'm concerned to be told that there've been 10, I suppose, points, messages come through, people are sleeping rough. We had some photos that were, circulated by Marcus last week and that. I just want to know, is there some kind of initiative underway to address that, or like, I'd like to see some kind of action.
Thank you, Claire. Wayne, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, it's quite a big topic, but just conscious of time. But I guess the response there is that we are acutely aware of it, because we get the queries that come in from our customers and our residents where people are maybe sleeping rough on a reserve next to somebody's house, and they're quite rightly concerned. We get people that maybe trying to use the Wi-Fi around our libraries overnight and on weekends, so hanging around the buildings. We get people that are sleeping under bridges, as you know. We get people that are sleeping in vehicles in industrial areas. So we get complaints. But it's not just a council issue here. I think it's a community response. And I think what our strategy is, we intend to use the Housing Working Group as the mechanism to discuss and refine our approach, to work with the agencies of government, with the police, to connect up and determine who's responsible for what and who has to refund what actions, because it's not upon us to go in there and fund solutions. That's not our role, but we have to respond as well to our residents. So yes, it is a piece of work that we are looking to do, and we're going to be using the Housing Working Group as a mechanism to do that. Have I got that right, Kirsty? Is there any other?
Yes, so through the chair, absolutely right, Wayne, that we have a staff housing working group that meets on a regular basis. So that is something that we're going to be bringing to that next meeting of that group in mid-November, to get not only the CRM data, but other data, and find out what other agencies are doing and ensuring that we have a joined up approach. So thank you.
I think that's great. So what happens to those CRMs now? Does any action get taken, like perhaps the police are informed, or MSD or something, or does it just get filed? Yes.
So there are certain responsibilities, powers that some of my team have. For example, we have been, the example that I gave in relation to the people that are living in the industrial area. Now, we've been working with the owners on that to ensure that they comply with the district plan. But in other areas where they relate to our reserves and those sorts of things, then we're working with the teams associated with those, have those responsibilities. So in terms of, I don't think we've gone to the point of issuing trespass notices or anything like that, but it really does require a sort of more joined up approach, because they're just moving people around otherwise.
Thank you, Wayne. Look, I think what I'm hearing around the table is we'd probably want to understand what the gravity of the situation actually is across the Waipa. So I think, the joined up approach, and Kirsty, I think your comments, are really helpful. If we can understand, following your meeting of the housing staffing group, I think we really want to try and unpick that a little bit and to see where our real concerns are. Our community advisors, I presume, are right in the thick and heart of that, because they do and are very linked up with our social services across, our district. So perhaps, Claire, we can simply get, a bit of a heads up, a report, perhaps. I don't want to get too formal, but we do need to understand what the situation is. Are you happy with that? Delmarie, did you have another comment?
The only comment I'd like to make is that we have Stephanie in the conversation because I know that she's been a response to certain initiatives around this subject. And I'd like to see what Wayne and everybody else has alluded to, a multi-agency response to this, because it isn't our problem, even though we do have a fiduciary responsibility of care for those that live in our area. But I would like to see a multi-agency approach that we're not left with the can. Kia ora tātou.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely perfect. Andrew, did you, or,
I was saying, Andrew wanted to speak. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So changing the subject, although just on that, I mean, it is our problem, but we have no funding to deal with it. Is basically, it's our problem because it's on our doorstep. I'm changing the subject entirely to growth. And so on page 35, I'm looking at the new dwellings and the CCC's issued. And the next page, total value of work, all of which play into the growth thing. But yeah. So when it comes to our growth, it all tends to get registered very late in our financial year. But I was wondering, is there any way of like doing a loose monitor on our expectation? It just seems to me, looking at this, that our growth is not as stunted as what we thought it would be. Tony, do you have a comment on that?
So I'm looking at the dollar value building work for Q1. Yeah, so that's more to do with, I suppose, the types of home that are coming into play. So some of them may be in the new subdivisions where credit's applied to the DC rate. So although the house QV may be more, we might see some more in terms of the rating impact and increase in rates for that house, given how much that house is actually valued. But from a DC perspective, if the house applies and it meets the right criteria, it will receive the baseline credit that was applied to the subdivision stage. So if it's a vacant section and it gets a new build on it, it won't increase how much charge there is until our new DC comes into effect, where we can review the GFA. So that will increase potentially the revenue through the new DC model.
Yeah, I wasn't actually looking at it from the DC point of view, more how growth assists our rating, situation and overall revenue, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really more in the following years because it doesn't.
Well, they will be rateable properties, so there will be, an assessment against what the evaluations will be based on the new build that comes through. But you've also got to remember that although the cost have increased, inflation's increased as well quite significantly from the last few years. So the cost to build something that's the same as 2021 may have been quite significantly increased as well. So there's inflationary measures in those values of the actual new builds as well. Yeah. So it will help, but it might not be a silver bullet, maybe just one of the other bullets that we've got. Yeah.
Sure, there is no silver bullet. But I guess where I'm coming from, we're in the current financial year, we've said 0.8% would be the growth. And in terms of rating unit, that's probably around 200. But I do understand the value of those properties also impacts on that impact. It just seemed to me that we're tracking ahead of that. Is that a reasonable? No, I'm just,
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Lou.
I just wanted to actually back up what Andrew was just saying. I don't know whether we had cited, but I just qualified that if you have a look at the graph, we had a sum total of 92 building consents, and that's just between 1st of July 24 and the 30th of September. So, that's quite a large figure, and they've just come through, notably that Cambridge and Leamington were well in the forefront. However, in saying that, I just think that we have not seen that retraction that we're being told about, and it looks to me that we are still progressing quite well forward.
Absolutely. All right, some great comments and discussion, everybody. Are there any other questions on this report? No? Okay, we have a recommendation on page 24 to receive the report. Can I have a mover and a seconder? So Andrew will move, Philip will second, all in favour? Carried. All right, that brings us to the end of our formal part of our meeting. So Dale Marie, would you like to close us off, please? And then we'll break for morning tea. Yeah. Okay, everybody, if we can come back, please, by 10:10, 10 minutes after 10, please.
Workshop.
Wow. Morena, kia ora everybody. Welcome to our first workshop of today. It is obviously a live stream workshop in connection with Cambridge Connections. And I guess Steph, our CE, has made the statement that she will lead this, this particular workshop for today. Oh dear, sorry, excuse me. Yeah. My apologies. There was an echo of myself in the room, and it was quite disconcerting. You know when you hear your voice recorded and you realise how awful you sound? Oh, waves of anxiety now. Marcus, quiet. Yeah. So look, without any further or too much introduction, obviously this body of work is familiar to us all. It's a crucial piece of future planning for Cambridge and therefore all of Waipa. Obviously, we've had significant history where we've accepted that there have been some significant missteps / failings along the way. We've taken that in our stride, accepted criticism and been bold enough, I guess, and brave enough to direct a reset, a rethink. And to this end, I will hand over to Steph to give us a rundown on where this body of work is at.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Susan, and morena tātou. Nice to see everybody in the room and online. I see Councillors Monty and Roger online. Good morning. And I'm sure that there will be very interested parties either listening live to this or will watch the recording of it. So I'm very aware of the significant public interest in this project. Before I do that, I just want to acknowledge that it's Melbourne Cup Day. And talking about connections and transport and getting around places at speed. So acknowledging the big day that is today with the Melbourne Cup. And see the ladies out the front with their fascinators on.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yes, yes. So big days. And why I say that actually is because I know obviously Home of Champions, one of the great things that we do here in Waipa is breed great horses and train great race horses and do lots of things with bloodstock and eventing. So and it leads me to my point about the growth of our district and particularly the accelerated growth around Cambridge. And I want to assure people that through both my interview process and in the 2 months that I've been here, including the Ahuaki consultation process, I've heard loud and clear from the Cambridge community about the importance of this project and the misstep, as Mayor Susan has called it, but the fact that we have lost the trust and confidence of a great number of people in Cambridge from the unfortunate way that the project has unfolded. And I have said publicly, and I'll say it again, that mea culpa, we realise we've got this wrong and that we've needed to reset the project. And so there might have been a time delay, there may be detail that you're wanting that we may not have already for you, but what I want to assure you is that as the Chief Executive, I've taken the time with the executive team to stop and really think about the project. And there have been robust and honest conversations internally, and we have agreed, along with Mayor Susan, that this project needs a substantial reset. And that means an entire reset of the project and the way that it's operating. I don't mean the aspirations of the project, and I have got some notes to talk to because I think it's important that I cover that off, and I'll speak to those notes in a moment. But what I'm saying to you today is that the purpose really of today's session is, rather than lots of slides of detail, is to assure you that we have taken the time and are taking the time to do a major reset of the project. So I'll talk about that in terms of the more operational matters shortly, but I do think that it's important we continue to acknowledge this and the importance actually of the reset being successful to ensure great placemaking for the future of Cambridge. And we know that the demographics changing, we're expecting more growth, and we need to, and as our Ahuaki consultation process has clearly shown us that our residents, our visitors, want great places to live and work and play and move about. And people are living and working and playing and moving about in a boundaryless way. And we need to think about the future in a way that's not necessarily encumbered perhaps by ways of the past, because the ways in which we move, where we live, how we work, remote working is changing very dramatically and at speed. So today, I just want to assure councillors that the project reset means that the project now will have an engagement and community relationship and partnership focus. With expertise in engagement and place shaping to be appointed. We have not got that in place yet, but the project lead will have that focus. The transport system needed to support the future of Cambridge will then be an outcome of the necessary visioning work we intend to do with our communities. The reset will revisit all of the underpinning assumptions of the project, both in terms of where and how Cambridge will grow and how the community's travel patterns may change over time. Our transport system is vital for our communities, businesses and the economy, but this needs to respond to our community aspirations for how our town works. Waipa residents make a large number of daily trips, including for work, education, shopping, that could be me, access to community services, socialising or other trips or trips to other centres. There are also a large number of daily freight movements that support the strong rural economy and the delivery of goods and services and other activities. We will talk to our community about these as part of the reset. As I said, the Waipa population is growing rapidly as more people recognise the attractive lifestyle that our towns and villages offer. And we understand that those lifestyles are the very things that people want to enjoy and protect. We have yet to recruit someone, as I said, to lead this project, but they will be working closely alongside our communications and engagement and strategy teams to ensure we leverage all opportunities to gain community views and insights. What I'm referring to is a whole of organisation project team. So the transport folks, our good folks that report to Dawn, will be involved in this heavily, but so will our communications and engagement and strategy teams. As I've said also, this project strongly aligns to our aspirations in Ahuaki, and also it aligns to our anchor institutions framework. The scope of this work is very different to how the previous work was undertaken, which was, I understand, much more focused on developing a business case to gain funding from NZTA. But we recognise that there was a lot of valuable feedback provided through that work that will not be lost. We've heard many great ideas from the community, including recently where we've met with different community members to hear their views and aspirations, and this will all form part of the evidence base from which the reset will use. The previous work was predicated on assumptions, which of course things usually are, such as the future use of Victoria Bridge. I would like to assure councillors and the community that we will retest those assumptions and go back to the drawing board and be very clear about that and work those through with the community. We will also, and in fact, before this workshop, I was having a chat with Brian and we got pretty excited about retesting the modelling and doing new modelling. We understand that there's a lack of trust and confidence in the modelling, and we think that there are some new ways of doing that, and we will do it in current terms. The Community Board, and I acknowledge Joe here today, have demonstrated great leadership in the Cambridge community, and it is recognised that they too will play a strong role in ensuring that this next phase of work is founded in making sure our community are able to engage in this work when and as they wish, to be a very real part of the journey and the outcomes. And when I say community, I mean a cross-section of the community, Joe. Ages, diversity, different voices. We all need to be at the table. Whilst there are calls for moving at pace, we always like to get action underway. It's recognised that time is needed for this next piece of work. A balance is needed between pace and the time for engagement in real terms, with engagement the absolute priority. This engagement work will come at a cost in a time when we are challenged. However, we have operating reserves available within the transport activity, and we believe that this is our utmost priority and requires the time and resource the Cambridge community deserve. I want to assure councillors, last night I was back on the Cambridge Connections website and I was looking at what we were aspiring to do. And I understand that it was born out of the 2022 Waipa Transport Strategy, but as I've said, it firmly links to the Ahuaki strategy as well. And we've recently conducted consultation and we'll be going through those hearings shortly. I want to just assure people that those early considerations of how we reduce traffic demand, provide transport alternatives, and maximise use of existing infrastructure are all principles that we still align to. But we want to focus on all aspects of Cambridge's transport network, including its river crossings, but that is not the entirety of the project. We are considering national climate change targets and ways to encourage and enable more walking, cycling and use of public transport. We also, as I understand it, had a fantastic group of external stakeholders involved in the project. And once we've got the internal settings right and have employed our project manager, resetting that group and making sure that we've got the community engagement in the right way, Joe, will be a really important first step for that group. So I haven't got that structure nailed down today for you, but we know there are a lot of people invested, lots of iwi, NZTA, community voices, and we need to carry those voices through, as I've said earlier. So I just want to reiterate my commitment to that. I think that, in a nutshell, covers where we're at. So you can expect to see changes in the project structure. Dawn, have we got the, I think there was a wee PowerPoint, but it was very short. So we've looked at the project structure and both everything from the governance group to the project sponsor to, as I've said, a whole of organisation team has been reset, and there's been a number of workshops internally where that's been designed. Can we just go back a slide, please, Zoe? Just want to make sure that, yeah. So in essence, is what I've said, a 30-year plan to help shape and develop Cambridge's transport services and infrastructure with a program as a result of that of short, medium and long-term improvements supporting Cambridge's growth. Zoe, I think that's the zero. So the proposed project structure is there in front of you. So it will continue to come to service delivery as a council committee. However, as we've said, the project sponsor will be Susan. The project governance group is inclusive of elected members, and that's at the mayoral discretion. The executive team will provide organisational oversight and strategic alignment, which we believe is really important because it is one of our big moves in terms of Waipa's development. A program manager, as I've said, is yet to be appointed and will be somebody that has a very strong community engagement focus. And there's a staff project oversight group and a project team. For those who might be interested, there will be consultancy services for technical business case input when we get to that point. But at this stage, it is largely a internally led working group for now. Can I just stop there and ask if there are any questions or points of clarification?
Does anyone have questions for Steph? Philip?
Not really a question as such, but it's good that it's good to hear that the program manager will be internal. There's always lots of murmurs out there in the community about consultancy fees and all sorts of things like that. So
might need to correct you that the program manager may not be internal. We need to find a person with the right skills. But what I was pointing to in the project team was saying that largely the skills will come from across the organisation because we believe that we've got them in comms and engagement and strategy and transport. But when we get further down the line, as we get closer to some outputs, there may be further skills required. But at the outset, in terms of the program manager, I'm most interested in the right person with the right skills and experience for the job.
So the project manager is going to be internal? It's going to be staff or not?
No.
Not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Oh, right.
Yep, we're looking for the right person who has, as I say, got the experience and knowledge and can help the team with the reset.
I've got Roger online and then you, Claire.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Steph, I just want to endorse a couple of things that you said there, and I really, really appreciate the reset of this. I really support your comments about it being one of your utmost priorities moving forward. I really do endorse your comments about it being, if you like, community-led and re-establishing the trust of the community. Really, really important. And obviously also your acknowledgement that although the river crossings are an important component, it's not only about river crossings. It is about the whole efficiency and effectiveness of the Cambridge transport network and the importance of having outputs from that which are both short, medium, and long term. And I think obviously the community will be interested very much in the short term outcomes as well to address what they see as some of the challenges of our current network. So totally endorse your comments there, and thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better, Roger. Claire and then Joe.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, I really love what you've laid out for us and sort of given us a picture of, because I do firmly believe too that, right back to foundational reset was needed, and to restore that trust and confidence. And I think what you've given us today, paints that picture. So really appreciate the seriousness with which you're treating us actually. And I'm also really heartened that you're wanting to have that diverse involvement as well, and particularly those community voices. So yeah, I like what I'm hearing. Yeah, so thanks very much.
Thanks, Claire. I have had a very small appreciation, having just been here for 2 months and been in the community for that amount of time, but the Cambridge consultation for Ahuaki certainly gave me a sense of what you, Mayor Susan, has faced and you as elected members have faced, and the staff in terms of this misstep. And we haven't quite got this one right. But I also want to thank the community members who have been really open and honest and direct. And they were there lining up at the Ahuaki consultation. But I'm really glad that they have, because we've heard that message. The team have heard that message. This is hurt on both sides, and our teams come to work to do their very best for the communities. And it certainly was never intended that this play out like it has. And I think we all need to take responsibility for that. And I think that we all can now work together. I think it's really important that we, and I say we as in the royal we in this room together, step forward together on one waka, excuse the pun, to make sure that we reset this with our community and rebuild that trust and confidence. Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge the community members who have come with very grave concerns but have been respectful and clear and asked for clarity and this reset. But I also want to acknowledge the staff who have done a lot of soul searching as well, and it's been pretty tough for them. But I would like to acknowledge their honesty and their courage.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Steph. Joe, and then back to you, Philip.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Steph. And firstly, thank you very much for letting me be here and having a voice at this table. I don't want to go back and rehash all the things that happened, but as you know, the community board had a really important role in facilitating a space where people could come and get further technical information, but also they could come and share publicly, and they could come and talk about how they were feeling, and they could fellowship with other people kind of going through the same thing. And we will still remain that kind of point of contact for people going forward. So for me to be part of these conversations is so valuable. So thank you very much. I'm really excited and encouraged with with all the things you said about the project focus being on public engagement. When I read through the majority of the public submissions, as you would have as well, Obviously, there were the technical concerns, but overwhelmingly, there were the issues with the process and how people got information and how they were confused about information. So I'm really heartened to hear, excuse me, about the rollout of it and also retesting assumptions. We heard that when you and I and Susan met with some people in the public, retesting the modelling. That's really encouraging. And the community board want to work with you. We've got a great partnership. We want to go forward with you on this. We want it to be as positive and as purposeful as it can be. And already I'm really encouraged. So thank you.
Thanks, Jo. And we really appreciate your leadership and moderation in what was also a very difficult time for you as a community leader. So thanks, and thanks for being here today. Philip.
And just really briefly, I mean, there's a lot of learnings here from this project for other projects as well out there, and perception is right or wrong. You know, it's been lacking a bit with communication and input, but anyway, it's lots of learnings.
Liz.
Thank you. Look, Steph, I think that you've been very brave, you know, coming in as a new CEO, and those are really bold words. And I absolutely believe that you have your heart in this project, and you've seen firsthand the anger and the hurt that we have created. And I just really want to acknowledge that there are a lot of people around this table, community board members as well, who did spend a lot of time in meetings working through, you know, the assumptions and working through all the data. So I want to acknowledge that there was a lot of groundwork, in particular Roger and Claire. Andrew, I think you're no, sorry, okay, well, it was Roger and Claire then, and Andrew Myers around the table from the community board. But you know, I think what we've seen is that just wasn't quite enough. And I'm really heartened to see your name around there, Susan. And Jo, you know, I think we needed that senior leadership. I can see it coming through now with Steph, with your words around your commitment. And that's what we, unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of that during the process. So I think this is a reset. Pleased to see it's going in the right direction. Really happy with, you know, what I'm seeing here in terms of its early stages. But just to reiterate what Philip said, you know, the comms with our community, that is absolutely critical. And I guess, you know, we got hammered in that space, but we've learned. We've learned. We know, I think we can step forward now and work with you, Steph, and Susan and Jo, and you've got our full support. So just, you know, as you need us, please let us know how we can help.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate that and your acknowledgement. I think it's quite exciting, and I know the team are excited. We've kind of all gone through that pain curve, and coming out the other side, we're excited about what we can achieve with this. And one of the most important things, I think you're right, is about the process, to your point, Jo, too, and that is of communication. And what I ask of councillors today is that we stay on the same page and that communications are clearly aligned. We have our agreed channels, and we avoid confusion in the community by being disparate ourselves within the house. So our house needs to be tight and aligned, and we need to make sure that when we're engaging with the community, we are all on one page. And so that's what I ask of you as elected members, that you can support me and the team with the reset in being able to do that. And I think that we're in for some great times. And I have, I feel very positive about what we can work through with the community through the time we need to take. In the short term, I just ask for your patience a little bit. As I said, you know, the action imperative is strong. We want to get going. I want to get going, but we just need to make sure that we've got the foundations laid very solidly to make sure that we can get this right. We can't afford missteps in this project. I'm very clear about that, and the team is very clear about that.
Kia ora, thank you. Any other comments people wish to make in respect of this matter? Andrew.
Yeah, I'll just make a very quick comment. I admire the way you are both tackling this head on, which is, I think, the only way to do it. And this is a genuine reset. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to a very successful outcome.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thank you.
Jo.
Just a quick question. Are there any next steps? And I know you want to get going, but you're not quite there yet. Are there any next steps that you could give us an indication of? Just because someone's going to stop me in the supermarket and they're going to say, what's happening with Cambridge Connections? What can I say to people who ask me? Because as you saw at Ahuaki at the farmers market, that came through pretty loud and clear. And we will receive those kind of questions. What could I say to the community over the next 6 months? What will we see happen?
At the risk of sounding very locally government, local governmenty, but the first step is actually to appoint that program manager because they will have the leadership of the project. And so that is a really important first step. And when that person brings the requisite skills and experience, they will want to sit down with all of the key parties, including the community board, and work with Lisa and her team to build the communications and engagement plan. So the first steps are to identify the critical steps within that within that comms and engagement plan without taking forever to do it, because I think we need to come back out and know there are people, including the meetings we've had with you, Jo, who are doing work, for whom it's still a very current issue, and we need to get back out and communicate. I think in behind the scenes, there will be work done to assess the options in terms of how we recast the assumptions and get ready to come back out as part of that comms and engagement plan. The first kind of steps, if we are going back to our first principles approach, is becoming ready to come out and test the assumptions and to find new and novel ways of redoing modelling. So to really rethink how we're going to go about doing that. There's lots of opportunities with GPS and cars and phones and SurveyMonkey and all sorts of things. So which options are we going to use? And we'll want to come and have a chat about that. But making sure that also the project team is set with the right people in all of the specific layers of the project team itself. But for me, a critical part of that is the leadership, and that's the program manager. I am conscious that it's November and people tend to go on holiday in December and January and school holidays. So we will have to work through that holiday period where it may not be suitable for people and they've got other priorities. But certainly gearing up for the new year in terms of being very engaged. The other thing that I'm always conscious of too is engagement fatigue. So we've just had Ahuaki consultation. We'll be coming back out around LTP in the new year, and we've also got Three Waters consultation. So as an organisation, we're going to carefully construct those pieces of engagement with the community so we don't exhaust the community in the first 2 quarters of the calendar year next year. But having said that, Jo, we're really clear this is a priority project. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good question. It was someone I was going to ask myself, actually. Any other questions before we bring this critical piece of work to a conclusion in terms of our discussions today? Jo, go for it.
Is the community board able to have regular updates at our meetings on the process going forward from staff or?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Look, apologise, this isn't in any more detailed kind of presentation. We've got, as you well know, we've got an awful lot of balls in the air, and we were very conscious that not only as an elected membership, but as a broader community, this issue needed and was deserved of being discussed and have a touch point back with that community around where we were going. Please have the confidence that there is a lot going on in the background, even if we don't have things such as this nature, such as this project appearing on agendas every week, that it all is forgotten. It's not the case at all. There is a lot of work going on in the background, as Steph has indicated, and there is still a lot more to do. So look, thanks, Steph, for your presentation today. It gives me great confidence that we will go some significant way towards re-establishing that trust and confidence in our communities in Cambridge. I'm absolutely confident that it's a place that nobody around this table ever wants to be again. and I say that from my heart. Nobody wants to be in a position where you're impacting on people in a manner that was so palpably harmful for some people. I really want to acknowledge that hurt. That was very clearly expressed and still expressed, but somewhat less. But we need to right those wrongs. So look, I think we can put a line under that one for now and look forward to receiving updates in particular around the appointment of that program manager in the fullness of time. Fantastic. There being no further discussion on that one, let's move on to the next workshop. Now, just before I invite Melissa et al. And LTP Wonder Women to come to the table, I just wanted to acknowledge that at 12 o'clock I need to sneak off and take a quick phone call. So I'm hoping that there will become a natural break in our conversation around 12 so we can all break for lunch and I can take my phone call. Is that a challenge? Excellent. Nice to see you. Take the stage, ladies. Now, for Mike and Roger online, we're all receiving our placemats with our leave, which is cool. Can you see it? Can you see it? There you go.
Do you want a tall person?
I am taller.
Yeah, you have to step back, Susan. It was, I could see the heading. Hey, yep.
There you go.
Oh.
It's all back to front too, isn't it? We'll save two for you fellas.
Good.
Good morning, ladies. The floor is yours. Thank you. So back to another LTP workshop. So just to highlight where we're at in the process, we're looking to provide a draft finance strategy to you next week at a workshop on the 11th of November. And I think from you, Claire, one of the requests came through at the last workshop was to highlight some of the key decision points based on what you can see up there on the slide. So the key decision points, I guess, just between now until the end of calendar year will be presenting draft funding and financing policies to you at the workshop on the 11th of November. The key decision point here will be particularly around the revenue and financing policy. So we'll need confirmation from you on that one, and that flows down into the fees and charges, which will be presented on the 3rd of December. The budgets will be confirmed on the 20th of November. So that'll be your last opportunity to make any final amendments before we present the draft budgets to you on the 17th of December ahead of the auditing process early in the new year. The 17th of December will be a big session. So that's I think it's a formal council meeting. And it will be essentially a package of all the information that you see up there, but particularly noting that we'll be providing the draft budget and consultation topics and key messages for sign-off. The consultation document will then be drafted, ready for audit early in the new year. So noting all of that, with the connection between the long-term plan and local waters done well, I'm actually just going to hand over to Sharon just to provide some detail in terms of key dates around local waters done well.
All right, as Melissa said, like we're working really closely with the LTP team and the Local Waters Done Well project group as well, because these dates are all interlinked. So just a bit of an update of where we're at. So on the 19th of November, there'll be a 2-hour workshop, which will have Becca and Martin Jenkins on site doing a presentation. So that will include the viability and sustainability assessment that they've completed. And currently they're working on some options assessment. So they will present that as well. On the 20th, the day after, we'll have Vaughan Payne here from Waikato Waters Done Well, and he'll be giving a presentation of where the heads of agreement is as a workshop and a discussion with elected members. 26th of November will be a council meeting and a report going up around the heads of agreement. So that'll be a decision point of carrying on with that piece of work or not. The 29th of November, we have our monthly Local Water Done Well PGG meeting. The 3rd of December, we need to provide an update to DIA as to where we're at with this project. So it's not a formal process, but they're expecting some update from us as to how we're going on the water services delivery plan and which options and that we're looking at. 17th of December, we're going to do a workshop on the consultation approach in regards to the delivery plan. So we've obviously got 2 options there, whether we follow the legislation under the Local Waters Done Well Act or whether we follow the Local Government Act. So working closely with Lisa on that. We're hoping to have Water Services Bill 3 should be introduced prior to Christmas. So that's gone quite quiet lately. So we're just waiting for that, more information on that to come through. In the meantime, we're busy sort of drafting what we can in the Water Services Delivery Plan, taking what information that we've got and starting to look at those sections and plan out that piece of work and I suppose getting the resources that we need to feed into there. Public consultation, again, in line with the LTP, looking at March 2025, and then adoption of the plan in June 2025. Noting that with elections in that, we won't have any council meetings from probably mid-July, so we need to do that adoption to go to DIA by the end of August, beginning of September 2025. So that's very high level timeframes.
Thanks, Sharon. That's a great outline. And I think for both elected members' purposes, but also those who might be online watching, when you run those timeframes against the LTP timeframes, you can see what the workload is in the organisation at the moment, and hence why we've got you in for long days at a time. And we apologise for that, but we're sort of between a rock and a hard place. I just want to reiterate what Sharon has said though, and because we're in this day in, day out, it may not be that obvious, but back in December, we're going to be talking with you about which legislation we're going to use to consult with the public about which of our options we're preferring from a waters delivery perspective, depending on which of those consultation processes we use. And we can use, as Sharon has said, either the consultation process provided for under the Waters Done Well legislation or traditional Local Government Act consultation, and combined with where the collective is in terms of Waikato Waters Done Well and all of the councils who have decided through their heads of agreement to continue when they make that decision, that could alter when that public consultation is in the new year. So I just want you to be sure that that is up there as March, Sharon, and that's right, correct me if I'm wrong, but that may alter depending on which consultation process we use and how many other councils we may or may not be out with consulting on similar or different things. And one of the conversations we're constantly having at the chief executive level around Waikato Waters Done Well is we want to make this as transparent and clear as we can for the Waikato communities. So, you know, our communities, as I said in the Cambridge Connections workshop, live and play and work right across the whole of the Waikato. And where there is alignment, we should be looking for it to make this as simple as we can for our communities. But just note the complexity of that timeframe and also how short that timeframe is. The Water Services Plan is a very complex document. I have to sign that off. So believe you me, I'm watching this process very closely with Dawn and Sharon, because that is not something that I'm taking at all lightly. So thank you, Mayor Susan.
Philip and then Claire.
Yep, thanks everyone, thank you. Just the meeting on the 29th, what was that meeting there? Because I don't see it in our calendar, and could an invite be sent out if it's appropriate, please? But
So that meeting is just for the governance group that we put together. So you'll
Right.
recall back in July, we brought a council report along, and we've done that governance. So we've got we've got Mayor Susan, and 3 councillors sitting within that group as well as staff. So, and then we report back from that meeting to the next committee meeting. So there you see what reports went up or any papers that have gone up.
Would it be appropriate, is it appropriate for us to have a Zoom link so that we could all watch it or not?
Councillor, I think that we just need to keep to the project, the project governance group, like we have for multiple different projects, and allow that group to do the work that it needs to then bring up the material for broader elected members. I think the process is a tight one and it's in place for a good reason. So, yeah.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks. So the question I have is about the public consultation for the local waters done well. So appreciating that you said it might change, but at the moment it's programmed in there for March. But the LTP is also going to be running concurrently. Yeah, I mean, I just wonder whether or not.
So that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Clare, is how they link together.
Yeah.
What are the critical questions we're asking in the LTP process, and what are the critical questions we're asking in the Waters Done Well, and how they might link together? And we haven't got that identified yet. It's something that's at play and we're firmly aware of, and it's a weekly, if not daily, conversation about how that's going to play through. So we're just raising your attention to it. And the other thing that we want to do while all this is running is do a bit of an awareness campaign with our community as well, to raise attention to the issues and start to build awareness of the community, so that when we go and ask for their opinion about what your preferred solution is or preferred options are, that there's some background that's been done with the community.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really good. I'm just, I suppose, concerned that if there are contentious issues either in the LTP or the local waters done well, yeah, to have 2 contentious things to be consulted on at the same time, yeah, wouldn't be well received by our communities, I think. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Claire. Any other questions before we hand back to Melissa? Oh, Bill.
Just a correction, and I thought Claire might have picked it up, but tile to tile, there's a space in between the A. It shouldn't be there.
Typographical error.
But, you know, I've been having feedback that people dislike me being so picky, so I'm choosing my battles.
Nice.
Brilliant. Good work. Kia ora, Bill. Melissa, handing back to you then. Thank you. So the current phase of this LTP project is really focusing on our financial strategy and the underpinning assumptions, and taking forward the preferred budget parameters to be able to develop a detailed draft budget. This is reflected in the placemats that you've now all got, and as I guess I've just alluded to on the previous slide that I walked through as well. So today's objectives, a number of budget scenarios, including key assumptions, were presented to you at workshops on the 16th and the 29th of October. Following this, preferred budget scenario has now been selected to take
forward to do detailed development based on. We are also currently in the process of developing the draft finance strategy, which will be reflective of the assumptions and the parameters that we've discussed through previous workshops. And this workshop, the draft financial strategy will be presented to you at the workshop next Tuesday on the 11th, along with the finance policies. So the purpose of today's workshop is to provide you with information of the updated significant forecasting assumptions, the preferred budget scenario parameters and financial benchmarks that were and changes incorporated following the 29th of October workshop. We'll also be presenting a suite of draft indicator properties which are based on the preferred budget scenario. These will show dollar value rates increases across different property types. So we can start to see how the rates increases play out across these different properties. And an outline of the implications if we're not successful in the application to get the increased debt to revenue covenant ratio up to 3.5 and just walking through the associated risks of this. So with the significant forecasting assumptions, they are something that is required under the Local Government Act, and we do need to include the associated risks that underpin the long-term plan and our finances. So they are a key building block in the LTP, and this is something that is reflected in the reporting that I provided this morning. They ensure all of our planning is based on the same set of information or the same set of assumptions throughout the life of the long-term plan, so for the 9 years. And they form the cornerstone to the development of the finance strategy. So they are developed at every long-term plan, and then we review them again through every annual plan. We'll obviously provide you with the amendments that we've made today, but also we'll be doing another check-in just prior to the audit early in the new year. So these were initially presented to you at the workshop on the 24th of June, sorry. At that time, it was only the non-financial forecasting assumptions. At that time, we didn't have the financial forecasting assumptions. At that time, only minor amendments were suggested. So we'll just walk through what changes have been made since then. So the full forecasting assumptions have been included in the workshop material. And I'll just walk through the more significant ones. So the first one being number 4. So this is the external fundraising will be successful so that relevant projects can proceed as planned. So we're suggesting that this one be removed on the basis of the projects that we were to be seeking external funding for are no longer provided in the draft LTP. So it doesn't really make sense that we include this assumption in our planning.
Yep.
And then just towards the end of the document, we do have some financial assumptions. The first one is around the increase in rating units and capital value. I will hand over to Tony to provide a bit of an explanation on this one, as it is a little bit complex. And you'll notice in the table 1, sorry, right at the end of the document, there is a bit of a jump in the projected rating units from year 3 onwards. So I'll just hand over to Tony to just provide a bit of an explanation of that.
here. Yes, so the increase in the growth there is basically due to a large portion of our capital works program that enables growth being completed within 3 years. So that's enabling the core infrastructure linkages for the likes of all the growth cells to be developed. And therefore, we start to get an uptake in the actual consents that can't proceed without those infrastructure capacities in place. So it's basically for years 1 to 3, you're in a teething situation where you're trying to build the infrastructure and only a certain amount of development can be brought forward. Past that point, you've actualized all the costs. Everything's sort of through there for secure land purchases. The terminal pump stations are built, your swales, outfall structures, everything's built. And it allows that free market to start inundating those growth cells with the development in there, and therefore increasing the amount of houses that come on supply. So you're likely to see that from years 4 onwards. The total amount in terms of the growth that's being projected in there is also the NIDIA studies for assumptions on the uptakes. So we've taken the sort of teething years 1 to 3, and then the total remaining balance of the NIDIA projections on the high growth scenario, and applied those to the years 4 onwards. So it's a combination of what we expect from the NIDIA projections, plus what we expect in terms of the train infrastructure to be in place. So any other questions?
Any questions for Tony there? A little bit of background music there by Lou, thank you. Any questions? Oh, Roger, sorry, I couldn't see you there. Roger.
It's all right. No, that's fine. Tony, thanks a lot for that. And it's really, I think, encouraging to see that growth really taking off again in year 4. Is there, and I realize what you're saying about putting in place all the infrastructure to enable the growth cells going forward. Is there any chance that that could come earlier if the environmental factors such as inflation coming down and interest rates coming down by a couple of big blocks in the next couple of reviews, is there a chance that may bring that development earlier, or is it really locked in because of the time taken for us to develop the required infrastructure?
There's certainly some fluctuation in years 1 to 3. It really depends on the market movements that are outside our control.
Yep.
Our ability to enter in development agreements with open and willing developers. But we do have some development interest occurring ahead of time, but we do try and negotiate best we can for those development agreements. So we do have the annual plan process in which we can revisit some of those assumptions.
Yep.
So there are abilities through there to say if we have received an uptake in growth to reevaluate things and reevaluate DCs as a result, which in turn reevaluates growth, etc. So
it is possible. Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Question, Roger. I have one from Monty online and then Nuclear.
Thanks, Susan. My question is, how sensitive are our budgets and forecasts to that year 4 jump in rating units?
So due to the fact that the DCs are calculated over the entire return period of a project, and it's ring-fenced the debt associated with that uptake. So we'll be able to, in annual plans, adjust accordingly the DC rates if we're not meeting those growth projections as they come online. So you've still got 2 other processes to follow with regards to annual plans and in 2 years revisiting the LTP. So we'll be able to have a better sense of what we've got in terms of our projected debt coming in that's going to cover these bases. So we have the abilities to reforecast as and when required if we're not quite meeting those benchmarks. So in terms of the sensitivity to the remaining projects, I would say that's not too much of an issue, but it really depends on terms of that uptake as well. So I can't really give a solid answer on that one, unfortunately.
Okay, no, I understand that answer. So that was sensitivity from a DC perspective. Does anyone in the room have a comment on sensitivity from an overall financial? Big.
Monty, you're sort of, can you just repeat that one? You sort of stuttered a little bit.
Okay, sorry. So look,
Sensitivity from?
I understood Tony's answer. That was sensitivity with respect to the DC story. So does anyone in the room have a comment on our wider financial exposure and from a sensitivity point of view to that big cost increase?
Councillor Montgomery, as part of the modelling that we've been doing for the LTP, we've averaged growth over year 4 to 9 in a bid to eliminate sensitivity around growth, so that you don't have this up and down the whole time each year, and to enhance predictability for our ratepayers. We've averaged the growth for the first 3 years, noting that there would be a slower economic environment and then picking up from year 4 to 9.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, I understand that answer. It's good. Okay.
Ken, did you want to add something further?
Yeah, so look, I agree with what Yolanda's just mentioned. I guess the other thing as well, yeah, Councillor Monty, is we obviously do have some reaction time as well. So we have forecast obviously the growth, as you've seen, to be very, very low in that first 3 years. Yeah, we will have to do another LTP, within the next 2 years, at which point the picture will be clearer. So so we do have some reaction time as well in terms of the wider financial consequences.
Claire. Yeah, thanks. And I'm pleased that was discussed, because that was something that I was concerned about, that big jump at year 4 at the rate of growth. But I think what you've covered off, makes sense. We've got that time to review it as we're closer to those years. The questions I have are around the rate of population growth and demographic changes. I guess that would be sort of behind those sort of forecasts of HUs that are taken up and things like that. So it looks like we are sticking with the high growth projections that we've had in the past. And I just wanted to check that that's still, an accurate reflection of what we're experiencing. I understood that most of our population growth was driven from people coming out of Auckland and also migration from overseas. So my understanding is that both of those things have actually really nosedived. Yeah. And so I just want to test that you're confident that it's still sensible for us to be adopting that high growth scenario.
So I think I'll respond first to that with regards to the types of systems that we've got in place. We are a tier 1 council, and we do have now the MDRS in effect with regards to different typologies and ranges. So denser house profiles can potentially mean more people. We've also seen that in terms of the growth profiles and what we did in terms of the analysis of the growth cells themselves. We reduced the average lot size down to 500 from 650, which in turn increased the amount of people that we would see in there. So my view is that those are good benchmarks to say that it's consistent, that we are seeing higher growth and a smaller density profile that enables that growth, and still having those capacities and those land values in order to achieve that. But in terms of the high growth projections, I believe those are sort of agreed upon at future-proof level. And that's where I'd probably defer to Kirsty if there's been any change or difference in that response.
Thank you. You're absolutely right, Tony, that like our future-proof partners, we have adopted a consistent approach with that high growth modelling. There is active monitoring undertaken, and so certainly, in terms of our expert, David Topman, we believe we're tracking in alignment with that. Yep, and it's appropriate to continue to use that consistent with our future-proof partners.
So I've just got a few more questions in that topic area, but I'm not sure if I should be pursuing them now, or because, you were talking about our own growth and that, but I do have questions about demographics.
Councillor St. Pierre, I just wonder if we let Melissa finish talking through inflation, borrowing and interest rates and the ratio, and then we can discuss the full suite.
Cool.
Yeah,
Sorry, Lou, did you have something
I'm
about
just
this
following
before
on
we
from
move on?
Claire. Okay, my thing is about growth, as I say. When you're talking that traditionally we relied on people coming into the area, I would say that we have to consider the fact that we have, one, the inland port will be coming on in Cairn. That's a huge impetus for us. Following that, what's happening at Ruakahia is another huge one. And of course, the operational status of Waikeria Prison. It will be operational. So we will still be a Growth One council. And I'm very positive about what's happening in the future, particularly in 2 or 3 years' time when all of these infrastructures come online. So I think that that will attract, as we said, people from Auckland are looking for jobs. They will come down here. So we're in that golden triangle. And I really think we do not want to cut ourselves, our perceptions back too far.
Thanks, Lou. Melissa.
So one of the other assumptions that you'll be seeing for the first time is around inflation. So this is number 17 in the attached table. So this is the inflation that's applied across each activity across the different years. And this is detailed, or these inflation rates are detailed in table 2. The substantive part of this data is provided by Infometrics, with the exception being the labour costs. So the labour costs are provided by our independent remuneration advisor, Strategic Pay. With respect to the borrowing and interest rate costs, so the assumption here is that we will continue to have access to loan funding through the LGFA, which we obviously get at lower rates than what we would get on the open market. And the rates there, or the information, has been provided by Bandcorp. And then lastly, the other assumption is the debt to revenue ratio covenant. So the assumption that we've included there is that our application to the LGFA to increase the debt to revenue ratio from the 2.8 to the 3.5 will be successful. Those are the last of the substantive changes, but happy to take questions.
Any questions of the team around those assumptions, or changed ones, new ones? Roger, have you got a question? Because I can't actually see you online. I'm assuming you've got your hand up, or am I just guessing? No? Okay, good. I can only see one of you or Mike at any given time. So apologies if I don't see you. Claire.
Yeah, can I jump in for my other questions? Yeah, cool. Thank you. So the first one was to do with the demographic makeup of our communities. Yeah, so that's on what page is that? Page 12 of our agenda, and that's the number 12. Yeah, the demographic changes. So I just felt that most of the source and the monitoring stuff is really focused on just the numbers, whereas I think we also had to be thinking about the kind of people that are coming here, the family groupings, because we talk about we're going to have more diverse cultural makeup or ethnic makeup. And I think, we might need to consider what kinds of houses they like to live in, how big, like they might want multi-generational, things like that. How do they socialize or interact, recreationally, thing like that. So I felt that in the source and the monitoring, there wasn't anything that would sort of pick that up. Yeah, so just wonder if you might like to give some consideration to how you get that sort of information. Yeah, that you use that to be feeding into our planning.
That's a fabulous question, Claire. And one of my kind of pet issues, demographics.
Well, yes, in fact, Mayor Susan, I know that you've been talking about it quite a bit, and I suppose that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about it. And also, so that was one of the things, and then going to the development contribution revenue, so slightly different to the growth scenarios, but this is page 14 and it's number 14. I just, under the monitoring or the sources, whether or not we have some kind of way to connect with our development or real estate agent networks that we are aware of what might be affecting buyer interest or suppressing sales. And this actually came through some conversations that arose from the Ahuaki consultation. So it's not simply modelling the development contributions. It's not simply, I suppose, relying on statistics and things like that. It's more the local intel, you know, have we got touch points with our communities, you know, for those particular areas, so that we, for instance, it was raised with me, or I was part of a conversation where the uncertainty created by the waste to energy plant is actually leading people to avoid buying sections in that vicinity, you know, or even in Tuamutu generally. And for us to be aware of that is really important because, you know, it means that we can actually try and remove that uncertainty, or we can appreciate how that might be impacting, you know, our budgets and our forecasts and things like that. So I was just keen to know that we're going to have some form of way of monitoring that. And it's also the same, oh, well, actually, and then the last one I wanted to say was the on page 15, which is the item 16, increase in rating units and capital value. Just under the monitoring, there's nothing there. It's probably the same as development contributions revenue, but I'm just saying that there's a gap there, and I think that it should be filled, because if we're demonstrating how we have an important assumption, we've laid out what they are, we know the risks and how we're going to mitigate it, but we're not monitoring it, yeah, there's a weakness in our framework, that's all. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely, Georgia.
Oh, sorry, just respond. They're all great questions and points, Councillor St Pierre. So just on the first one in regard to the demographic changes, we'll go away internally and have a discussion around that and feed that back to you. In regards to the DC revenue and monitoring, again, we'll need to have just a quick discussion and figure out the most robust way that we could do that and the avenue with which we could feed that back. And again, the third one, agree, will fill that hole, and yes, it would be the development contribution monitoring that we're currently doing. So appreciate that. Thank you.
All great points, Claire. Thank you. And I see Monty, you've got your hand up, and thank you, Zoe, for changing the view so we can see everybody.
Thanks, Susan. Hopefully you can hear me all right now.
Can do.
So just following on from Claire's point, I've got no problems with any of these assumptions, but just in the monitoring space, there's just a point I want to make around revenue and the DC revenue. The monitoring is coming partly through finance and corporate, partly through audit and risk, and partly through SP&P. And I just think going forward, it would be good to tidy that all up into a really clear reporting line through F&C for me. Because of the tight spot we're in, we need to be really, really on top of, you know, our forward-looking budgets, and I think F&C is the right place for that to go. Thanks.
Yeah. So Ken's jumping in, but yeah, absolutely, we can do that. We will want to continue some of that from a key risk monitoring aspect through ARC, but absolutely agree that we can look to consolidate.
Yeah, so Councillor Monty, that's a great suggestion. Just noting that the ARC reporting is absolutely identical to the F&C reporting, so we do have consistency there. But yeah, very conscious that there is some there are some differences in the SPP reporting. And in fact was actually looking to organise a meeting with Tony to actually talk about that and look to be consistent through. So we can easily work on that.
And just following on from Ken there, we are working in the background around that stitching of the data. So the reason why it's sort of spread out is just because it's become top of mind. But we have worked with organisational excellence in terms of trying to form a proper report through Power BI that takes the data sources for development agreements, which is separate from the CI process, and trying to get that data together so we can show it in a more former-friendly function. So we are working on that. Yep.
Okay, thanks everyone. That's heading in the right direction. Thanks.
Thanks, Monty. Any other questions? No? Excellent. Back to you then, Melissa. Okay.
Okay. All right, so as Melissa introduced previously, the next sort of part of the workshop is to go through the preferred budget and have a discussion around indicator properties. Before we do that, we just want to go back and just recap where we got to at the end of the last workshop on the 29th. So, and just for your information too, these memos, etc., have gone up on the public website. So all of the community will be able to have access to this information from today. So through that last workshop, elected members gave us some guidance in regards to the changes to make, and that was to the budget scenario 4.1. So just in terms of the language that we're going to use today, we've sort of switched from scenario, and so we're going to start to talk about the preferred budget rather than a specific scenario. So if you hear me talking about that or Yolanda talking about that, that's what we're referring to. So the changes that were made, we included a number of budget decreases that we talked to you about. We included one increase, which was around organisational strengthening. The one thing that I would also say with the changes that have been made, we are currently going through a 4-month reforecasting process. So there may be some slight wiggling around the edges as those numbers are firmed up and we get more of an understanding of, and including, you know, some of those carry forwards, etc., that might need to be included. So just bear that in mind, some wiggle around the edges. The other things that we included were just the assumption change. So when we talk about the assumptions around the preferred budget, within the financial strategy that you'll see next week, you'll see that we reflect the debt limit in line with the 3.5, but we will talk about council's strategy to try to limit that debt to a maximum of 85% of that limit. So we'll keep the language like that, and then if we breach that, then we can talk about that rather than conversely increasing that limit. So that was a position that we reached at the end of the last workshop in regards to how we articulate the assumptions. And the other key change that we've now made is we've brought back in a number of renewals into the later years as guided by elected members as well. So 19.3 million has been brought back across years 7 and 8. And that now fully clears any deferred renewals by the end of the draft LTP. And so if we just move forward, we'll get through these next couple of slides and then take questions. So this is the output of those changes. So this is what the preferred budget now looks like. And within your pack, you've got a number of the graphs, which is on page 4 of the memo, which again highlights how we're going against our financial prudence limits, etc. Just in regards to the characteristics around this. So this preferred budget is aligned to the financial strategy principles that we will be talking about with you later next week, and we have touched on previously. It does compromise that debt headroom comfort level in years 2 to 4. But however, doing so does lower the rates increase. It is within the affordability measures that we've cited, so it is within that 5%. It ensures water compliance, even when that may be moved out to a CCO, and that's in regard to compliance against that 5.0 benchmark. And you'll see that line has now been included on that graph of page 4 of your memo in terms of the detailed graphs in regards to 2 waters. You can actually see that we're within that parameter. There are a couple of nuances around the preferred budget, and that's in regards to the financial prudence benchmarks. And so I did just want to hand over to Yolanda to highlight those with you so that we're all transparent and on the same page as we move forward.
Thank you, George. So it's on page 4 of the memo that we circulated. The first, I just want to notice the quantified limit on rates increases. We have talked about this at a previous workshop. What this will require is a change to our financial strategy to have it at 75% for the first 3 years, and then reverting back to the 65% of total revenue that we've had in previous LTPs. The second change is the limit on rates increases. So that's just the next graph in your memo. What we've had previously is LGCI plus 2% as our rates limit target. So with the current rates increases, the first 3 years of this plan exceeds that target. We would like to discuss how you wish to express this in the financial strategy. So we'll have that conversation with you at the next workshop when we look at the financial strategy. Then the next one I just want to highlight is the balanced budget that you can see. You'll see in year 1, we are below the benchmark set of 100%. The reason for that is, firstly, in year 1, we are using reserves of 700,000. We do have some operating projects included in the operating cost line that's not funded through revenue or rates. So something like our district plan program is funded through loans. It's normally when we have it stretches over multiple years and it has a multi-year benefit to our ratepayers. And then the last reason is there is a level of unfunded depreciation already worked into the numbers, where we've deliberately decided not to fund depreciation in full for some of our community facilities. Just to note that the rates requirement in year 2 is set to fund the balance sheet for our Two Waters activity. As we've discussed previously, we've indicated that these additional rates will be used to reduce external debt. However, if you do the balanced budget calculation, because of the nature of that, it's revenue, it's included in the revenue line, and that's why you see the increase in those years. We can take questions, Chair.
First, I've got Monty online, then Claire. And Andrew, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Monty and then Claire.
Thanks, Susan. Yolanda, the limit on rates increase, you said that we were going to speak about that at the financial workshop next time. Do you not want to discuss that now?
We had a lengthy discussion at the PGG, Councillor Montgomery, and we feel it's best placed to have that discussion when we look at the financial strategy and how that story is told, and then have the discussion which way councillors would want to go.
Okay, I'll keep my thoughts to myself at this stage. Is that best?
The rationale for that, Councillor Montgomery, was that it doesn't affect the outcome of the budget. It affects how we narrate around our financial strategy and that benchmark. So we thought it was best placed to have that conversation next week and not within the numbers discussion today.
Okay, understand. Will do. Thanks.
Thanks, Monty. Claire.
Yes, so I'd like to talk about the balanced budget graph and how we tell that story, because just at first glance, like if it says the balanced budget is about what we collect in revenue, including rates, and then what our expenses are, which is sort of operating expenses. Generally, that's what you think, what we need each year. So it looks like we're overrating. It looks like we're collecting far too much from our ratepayers for what we need to do. And so I just want to be very careful about understanding. I mean, you're suggesting that's not the case, but some people in our community aren't so trusting, or they'd like a bit more evidence, to understand that, we're collecting this stuff and we've got a good reason for it, and it's not like we're overrating just for the sake of it. So I think it's really important for us to, communicate that really clearly.
Yes, agree, Councillor St. Pierre. We will have a look at that together with in the financial strategy. That's part of the discussion around that. Thank you.
Right. Yep, so there's no further questions just in terms of our starting position for the conversation today. We can move on. All right, so the next part is moving into the draft indicator properties. So as Melissa said previously, this is about demonstrating the actual dollar impact of the rates increase across a range of properties. So what we've presented and the information that we've provided you so far is the first 2 years. And we've done that within the time periods that we've had as they're the 2 years that have the highest rates increase. So we wanted to concentrate on those. We will come back with the full 3 years on the 20th of November. So just keep that in mind. And again, just reiterating, we are going through that 4-month forecasting process, so it may wiggle a little bit on the edges, but I thought Yolanda's just going to take some time to walk through the methodology in regards to how those indicator properties are calculated.
Thank you. So our indicator properties cover 12 different properties across our district, different types. Excuse me. Our water rates that you'll see in the indicator properties are based on average water consumption per residential property and per commercial or industrial property for the 23-24 financial year. This information was derived from information submitted to Te Mata Arawai, as well as Audit New Zealand as part of the annual report audit for 23-24. The increase in We've separated the increase in water rates and residual council for ease of understanding to see where the impact will fall on our ratepayers. So just to recap, for both our residual council and 2 waters activities in year 1, we have based the rating levels on what is required to fund the operational costs associated with council activities. In year 2, residual council is based on the rating level required to fund the operational cost, where for 2 waters, it's based on the level of revenue required to ensure that the water CCO will be compliant with the debt to revenue ratio. And that's why we have that rates increase in year 2. In line with Section 21 of the Local Government Act, councils cannot have more than 30% of the total rates bill based on uniformly set rates. For 25-26 year 1, this is set at 22% of our total rates bill. We've increased the UAGC in line with the rate requirement to fund the activities of residual council, meaning the waters increase still sits with the users of the water services. So on the next slide, we've included in the memo just a couple of graphs trying to just illustrate the level of increases per week that we find across the different groups of properties. So this is the example of the residential properties from highest to lowest, the red being the 2 waters weekly increase and the blue being residual council.
Marcus.
Just one question about the indicated properties. Does the Tiamutu area, does that just include the Tiamutu township, or does it include Kihi as well? And what are the boundary locations for the Cambridge area one as well?
We'll include Kihi.
Yeah, Tiamutu definitely includes Kiki. Cambridge, I'll have to double check that it's how we group as residential. But yeah, the boundary locations I can.
Yeah, look, in both cases, it is the broader urban area. So so Te Amutu and Kiki, and Cambridge, Cambridge and Leamington, obviously, in terms of the broad-based residential area.
We had to do the boundary realignment for the representation review. Would that then pick up the frontier road stuff as well for Tiamutu?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. That boundary realignment was a different thing. That was for, I mean, essentially that was for electoral purposes, obviously. Yeah, I would have to, I'd have to check that, or the team would have to check that in terms of whether those properties are actually going to be captured in here or not. I mean, yeah, clearly they are residential properties, but yeah, look, we'd just have to check, where they would sit. But actually, when they are rated, they will be rated as residential properties, actually, to be honest. So yeah, so they would be captured here. I mean, what you're looking at here is very specific individual indicator properties, and in fact the same indicator properties that we've used for many years. So it won't include those properties specifically, but the impact would be similar if they're of similar capital value.
Can I ask a question about Nahanapuri there, the one in the middle? It's just a bit counterintuitive because I know that they're not on council water supply. It just seemed that they are a lot higher than the trend, that's all. And I'd like to understand what was behind it. Just seems, I would have expected it to be similar to Pirongia or Haupu. Yes, I don't know why it's just sort of so much more.
So if I look at the, you'll see the capital value is higher than Pirongia and Ohopu. So the specific properties capital value is just significantly higher.
It's a very high one.
Two questions. One just following on from that, and then the one I was going to ask. So so the properties that aren't connected to water, they're still getting charged?
Yeah, so if they don't have water or wastewater, it'll just be a blue bar.
Right. And if I've missed something, sorry, what does the high, medium, low mean across?
It's just we've picked 3 properties in each of these groups. So high means it's a high capital value, medium means it's in the middle, and then low is one on the lower end in the same group. Yeah.
Yeah, and councillor, when you actually look at the more detailed information, it actually discloses the actual capital values. So it actually discloses the actual capital values of those properties.
So in terms of just broad outcomes, residential properties in Te Awamutu and Cambridge are slightly above or below the 16% average rates increase after growth. Our smaller villages and rural residential properties, as well as our rural farming properties, are generally under the 16% average rates increase. Our commercial and industrial properties generally exceed the 16% average rates increase. The main contributors would be the capital value as well as the number of pans the particular property has.
Questions? That's the end of the spiel.
Liz. Yeah, look, I guess red flag, commercial, industrial exceeding the 16%, but it's good to have that explanation around the pans. But it isn't going to sort of ease the queries that I know that we'll get as elected members. And I guess it's one of those, it'd be great to have some FAQs or something, because over the years, we've had some years farmers are up and down and residential, like it's always been kind of someone's turn. And I guess the commercial industrial, this is obviously a time where those 2 factors are affecting that rates increase. So some FAQs might be helpful, just so that we can answer those queries when they no doubt come to us.
I think that's absolutely on the cards, Liz, and great that you asked the question. I think that the team are just making sure that this is really clear and laying it out. Obviously, you were all waiting for the indicator properties and how that may play through. What does the 16 point something percentage actually mean in dollar terms, and how does that fall across the district? So once we've landed that with you, then absolutely developing the comms around it with a critical step.
Leah, and then Andrew.
Yeah, and just on the commercial and industrial, like we used to, about reducing water use, like we used to provide a service or some kind of advisory thing, where people could have someone come around and like help them work out how they could be more efficient or reduce their water use. I don't know if we still offer that, but I think it might be quite nice if maybe they could have, you know, people who are impacted, you know, like that one on the far left, you know, that's over 2,500 a year, that's going to be, yeah, increasing. So, yeah. I also noted that in the parking lot, there was a question that I had asked around the impacts of big water users. And previously it had said that we'd have a bit of a feedback today, but now it looks like it's going to be sometime in November. I'm just really keen to make sure that, you know, some conversations are having with those really big users, because I know it's going to be quite a shock for them. Yeah.
Yes, so look, actually, I'm not quite sure if Dawn got that question or comment, because I think she was involved in a side conversation. But yes, we did. We did meet during the week to plan out what that approach would be, particularly to our very major water user in the district. And I know Dawn does have that in hand.
And I would be really keen for us to have a time frame around it. I actually thought that when it said when it would be dealt with is actually today, and now I'm finding that actually you're just working on an approach. You haven't contacted those people, and so, you know, we're getting further down our budgeting and indicated property track, and we still actually, I've got a really big question about whether or not how feasible it's going to be for us for those big water users. Yeah, so I'm getting a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, and I'd like to know when we might have been able to have a conversation with those big water users, and what it's likely to be, you know, looking like.
Sorry, just within the parking lot, Claire, that's our fault in terms of we haven't articulated that very well. We had planned today to come with some of those, I can't remember quite what they're called, key
Properties of interest.
Properties of interest. However, we haven't managed to, so we will be coming back to you with those. But in the meantime, there is a plan being produced. So apologies for that.
And to one of your other points, Dawn, did you want to respond to Claire's questions?
Kia ora koutou. Certainly with respect to the Smart Water program, we participate in the shared services through CoLab, and they have various programs in terms of targeting education programs. So you'll note this summer we're having one around particularly drought-free plants or drought tolerant plantings and the like. With respect to the program of helping individual property owners in terms of manage water use, we certainly monitor water use. If we see someone with an excessively high sort of invoice, we certainly follow up with them. That wider education program, I don't know if it's still in place, but I'll follow up and find out.
To augment that though, I think that there's actually, that space has been taken up by the private sector, and there are certainly really good business advisors and businesses out there who provide advice to commercial and industrial users about how to manage the resources within their business. And I've certainly been involved with a number of businesses, including farms, but industrial and commercial businesses who have implemented those techniques and really reduced both power and water consumption. So there is that availability too, Claire.
Any other questions? No? Oh, Liz. Yeah,
I'm kind of really loath to raise this, but because it's in the paper on the report, it's just that it's the sports club lease model, and it's in, and I just don't want to kind of leave it hanging in limbo. So it's in, and that's where it's going to stay, just so I'm absolutely clear.
Thanks, Liz. For now it is. I'm having conversations with Mayor Susan, and the team met with Sally yesterday about it, and we're just having conversations about that piece of work. And I'm trying to understand what decisions were taken when and how it came to fruition and what that means for the LTP going forward. At this stage it's in, but we are looking at it.
Cool. Any other questions? Loathed or otherwise? Yeah, no, fair call. It's a fair question, absolutely, 100%. Nothing further? Back to you then.
Hey, Susan, just from me, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Monty, voice
Look,
from
it's
the
not
gods.
a question, so I was loath to say it, but it's just really good to see the indicator properties. It brings this debate and consideration. It becomes much more meaningful when you see where the impact's falling. So it's a good step.
Yeah, absolutely, Tautoko, that it's hard to visualize what it means when you're talking about average rates, percentage increases, right? It's when you want to get it on the ground and have a palpable understanding of what that's actually going to look like. Okay. Back to you then, Melissa.
All right. Okay, so the third part of the discussion that we wanted to have with you was just raising awareness around the risk associated with our assumptions. So at the moment, our preferred budget is based upon us being successful in an application for increasing our debt to revenue ratio from 2.8 to 3.5. And staff do believe that the risk of us not being successful is very low. However, that approval isn't expected until February 2005. So at the moment, as we work through this process, we are carrying that assumption and that low level risk with us. So we just wanted to be really transparent with you and just to raise awareness around what that could look like in the future. Yeah. Yeah.
So if it wasn't approved, we would have the option of going forward exactly as we are now, but simply paying a higher rate of interest on a part of our borrowings.
Hold that thought. Hold that. When we get to the potential strategies, I think we'll open it up at that point. Yeah, is that cool?
Yeah. Oh, but is it my reading of it at the moment is if it comes back at anything less than 3.3, so that's we can carry on if the recommendation is 3.3. Is that right?
It's workable, but our debt headroom comfort level would be quite severely compromised.
Okay, uncomfortable then.
We would be uncomfortable. So we'll just run through this and then we'll open it up for those very good questions. We did present those three budget scenarios to you that were 2.8, and all of those did come with some levels of pros and cons in regard to some of the trade-offs that we would have to make across those scenarios. In all instances, the first year was quite a significant rates increase of about 29%. As Councillor Stoic has said, there is a possibility of a lesser covenant. So if we did get something that was, for example, 3.3 or higher, 3.4, it would be workable, but our debt comfort levels would not meet what we've decided as our comfort levels at this point in time. So just if that scenario that we consider low risk did come to fruition, it would mean that councillors would need to have some discussions around the strategies that they might want to take forward. And I don't want to go into them in any detail, but we can discuss them. So they're around those higher rates increases, the migration to waters in a more urgent way, looking at IFF arrangements, would need significant reductions in levels of service. We also consider strategies in the short and longer term with the LGFA. So there would be quite some considerable conversations that elected members would need to have in regards to this. And again, they all come with pros and cons and impacts associated with them. But just for transparency, we wanted to bring this into the conversation so we're all aware of the risk that we are carrying. In conclusion, again, staff do recommend that it is low. What we are recommending at this point in time is, while we're being proactive with LGFA, et cetera, and staying abreast, that from a budget modelling perspective, we're going to take a watching brief position. So we're not going to do more further detailed budget work under a 2.8 scenario. I would also just like to add, if we did have to go down that path, there would be quite significant risk in regards to us meeting our legislative timeframes, as there would be some significant rework that would need to be had, not just within the budgets, but across our consultation processes, et cetera, as well. So just that's kind of a wrap up of our current situation and things that elected members would need to think about. So opening it up for discussion.
Mike, and then I believe Roger and Monty, then Andrew.
Thanks through the chair. One's a comment that I'll talk to someone about the water tower and just some further options there that have come to us from a community member. I'll talk to someone offline about that. But the next one is back to Liz's point, the sports club lease model. But I tie this into the next one down of new levels of service currently excluded, the Cambridge connections. And Steph, you've alluded to the fact that the money for the business case at this stage is coming from reserves. I guess what
money for the program, to continue the program, not necessarily for the business case. We're not even thinking about that at this stage. Right. Just be clear about that.
Right. So it's fine that, so we're comfortable that it sits
OPEX.
outside.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just looking at Dawn to clarify that. Yep.
Right. That's all fine. Right. But that sports league club model, before this is all approved, I want some more clarity on why we're doing this. What are the absolute advantages and what are the risks before I sign off anything on whatever day is in the future, just to put that on public record.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. We have raised, as Steph had said, that we're doing some work in the background to pull out the journey, if you like, of that proposition to us as a group when we workshopped it, what the feedback was like, where we got to in terms of that decision-making process, and we will bring that back. And all too conscious of both your angst around that and yours, Lou. Well understood. You've impressed upon us your views. So probably no value in going into that again right now, but just rest assured there is work being done that will come back, and it is on that parking lot piece. So with that said, you've no more, Mike?
No, just nothing financial. Someone had a great idea about the water tower, which I'm going to share with someone. Just tell me who.
Feed it into Ken.
Did you say you've got a great idea? We love great ideas.
Eric Hill has, I think, has got a great idea that we probably haven't thought of that can be explored, but I'll talk to you offline about that.
Yeah, take that up with Ken offline.
Let's catch up later.
According to my little list, then it's your turn, Roger.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Susan. Yeah, regarding the contingent position, I agree totally with the position that you are taking. I see and I support, in any case, irrespective of your contingent position, the migration towards a two waters solution as quickly as possible. And I think we all wish to see that. In terms of your conclusion, what in fact would happen if we did breach the legislative timeframes? I mean, what would they do to us?
So Councillor Roger, just to understand that question better, you talked about what's the consequences of meeting the legislative timeframes, or do you mean what?
Well, you've said.
Oh, sorry, not meeting, right. Yes. Yep. Sorry, I'm with you now. Sorry, I missed that. I'm not sure who's best to talk to that. I mean, there is a legislative timeframe, obviously, to adopt an LTP by, well, our next LTP by 30 June 2025. So in the 24 round, so this year, there were some councils who were looking like they might struggle to meet that due to the environment we were working in terms of uncertainty, etc. So the government did actually extend that. You may recall, extended the timeframes through to 30 September. I mean, that was absolutely particular to the 2024 year. Look, I think what the ultimate consequence would be that there is an audit opinion required on the in regard to a long-term plan. So that would be I'm sure there would be reference in the audit opinion to that. But look, I guess the long and short of it is that the major consequence would be reputational. A council could not deliver by the required deadline. And like I say, unless there was some sort of accommodation by the government to allow for that as there was this year.
Okay, but as you say, the risk as you consider it to be considered to be low, so that's fine. Yep.
Yes, we do consider it to be low. I mean, bearing in mind that that this bespoke covenant potential availability was very much something that that the LGFA and the government together have have developed up. Being very cognizant of the position of multiple councils, councils with high rates of growth, tier 1 councils, including Waipa, but not just Waipa, but other councils. There has been indication from the LGFA that there are at least 5 councils, including Waipa, who are looking to take advantage of the bespoke covenant provision, and like I say, it was developed up by them in response to the need that they saw. So on that basis, we are pretty confident. We have had several discussions with the LGFA. We're pretty certain we'll fit the criteria. We just need to await the the available time to do that.
That's fine. Thank you, Ken.
Actually, Councillor Rogers, sorry, there is just another thought in regard to consequences of late adoption of an LTP. So look at, and this would be the same with late adoption of an annual plan as well. Look, it is, and the adoption of that document is essential to our ability to strike rates. So look, to be fair, there's there's a reputational consequence, but there is also that consequence of difficulty in striking the rates. There is legislative provision to go ahead with a rate strike regardless. But look, that's not a great prospect. There is a legislative enablement there. Not a good place to be. And just reiterating, we are not expecting to be there.
I remember the discussions that we had prior to the ALP, Enhanced Annual Plan. That
yes, that's correct. That's correct. At that point, we were looking to potentially take advantage of a 30 September extension, but we did work through quite closely the consequences of that on rate strike, and in the end, we didn't need to be there because we went with the enhanced annual plan option.
Roger, can I just add to that too? Sorry, that remember next year is an election year. And so any delays then delay the annual report. As Ken said, they delay the rate strike. And in fact, that can lead to affordability issues, because if you delay rate strike and you rate for the first quarter based on last year's rates, that means effectively in the next year, your ratepayers are paying the new rate in 3 quantums or 3 payments, quarterly payments, as opposed to 4. So there's, as I say, the annual plan setting for next year then gets delayed. So there are significant ramifications of not meeting that date.
But the risk assessment is low, and when you consider that the concept of increased covenant was not ours, it was done by the LGFA, then that's, I think that you're correct. It is a low risk.
Yeah, it was a low risk, Roger, because I would say that the LGFA are considering it at the significant behest of the government, and it was almost an election promise to come in and sort out some funding and finance tools. And this is the tool that the government has looked to in the first instance for Tier 1 growth councils. So effectively, it's the government driving this, as Ken has said.
Yeah, it's a good probability level.
Yeah, I would say so. And in fact, I've just reached out to a trusted advisor to ask to confirm again what they think the probability is, which I expect the answer to come back as very low. I'm looking at Liz because I think Liz is interim chair and Monty's got his hand up, Liz.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, is this a good time to sort of break for lunch? I feel like it would be. Monty, is your question related?
My question's now redundant. I was just same points Roger was making. I was just endorsing the staff's assessment on the contingent position and their recommendation not to develop it a whole lot further. That's me.
Okay, perfect. All right, everybody. Hey, let's
Sorry,
make
Councillor Stolwick, we don't actually have anything further to talk about for the LTP. So this is the end of the LTP discussion. If that influences when you're going to have lunch.
Yes, it does.
Mayor Susan wanted to get some guidance from the room. So would you mind just have a tai ho for 30 seconds? I'll go and see how long she might be, and we might just quietly entertain ourselves. Somebody might sing a song for 30 seconds while I find out what's going on.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest that Philip, who's a new choir member at the Cambridge St Andrews, might sing the song.
Well, yeah, but it was all in Latin, so I got a bit of practicing.
All right, everyone, let's have a 5-minute break.
Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Nice to see you again, Roger, and Monty, you're somewhere in there. I'm absolutely certain of that. So look, I will hand back over to our capable team to pick up where we left off before lunch. Before we cover off the next steps, can we just confirm if there's any more questions or discussion points around this slide and the information that's been presented through this last part of the workshop? I think it's been pretty well canvassed. So in terms of the next steps, so the next workshop will be held on the 11th of November next week. So at that workshop, we'll be providing the first draft financial strategy, the funding, we'll be having a discussion around the funding and financing policy. So these ones being the revenue and financing policy, the rates remission policy and treasury management. We'll also be having a discussion with you around the approach and messaging for the consultation document. And then flowing into the 20th of November workshop, we'll be presenting the development contribution fees, confirming the budget and providing, I guess, a little bit more detail around the property indicator. So that being 3 years as opposed to the 2 years that were presented today. The draft infrastructure strategy and also the performance measures. So that those are the next 2 workshops for the LTP.
Can I ask how long you expect Monday's workshop to be?
I don't have that information at hand, sorry.
Okay.
But I can loop in with
But
you
it starts at
afterwards.
1, does it?
Yep, we'll get that timing for you, Lee, Andrew, and we can send out a message to let you know how long it's going to go for.
Yeah, that'd be
immediately
great.
following this, so it allows you to plan your life.
Thank you.
In our calendar invite, it says 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
Yeah, they generally go in as general placeholders, and we actually have been talking as a team as how do we start to refine them so they get more sensitive as well. So they get put in as placeholders right at the outset. So it'll be there from 1 to 4. We'll double check that and let you know.
And so just one thing to everybody, of course, it's Armistice Day. We've got a commemoration across the road here. Mayor Susan will be there. So that starts at 11.
It's 11,
And, you know, it's always been a difficult point for all those to want to be able to commemorate. So
Thank you, Lou.
Currently, the run sheet has it scheduled for 3 hours. But that should be potentially refined a little more. Some rigor over that, yeah, and we'll let you know. Any further questions of these good people? No? And that is the end of your workshop today. Look, before we wind up, I wonder if, and I emailed you all to give you a little bit of heads up, I just think it's really important as a group of collective decision makers that we get a bit of a bend or a beam on where everybody's kind of at in terms of this process, because it would be really worrying to get to the end and suddenly have everybody go, don't like, not happy, wasn't happy from, you know, right at the beginning. So I guess I don't need a prolonged lecture around what you do and don't like about it, but just on balance, are you feeling some comfort with how we're going and where we're going? So I'm happy to start the ball rolling. Probably no surprise, I have reasonably high levels of comfort around how we're going. Sure, nobody likes some of the numbers, but in terms of where they lie, but that's a given. We're all in that space. So I'm really comfortable, really pleased with the way that this is logically planning out. I really like that. I like the fact that we're constantly going back to what we've agreed before and not going off piste and keeping within what we've said is important to us. So that's how I sit. I'm going to be different and go to my right this time rather than left. Lou, can I pick your penny for your thoughts in terms of your level of comfort? Again, it doesn't need to be a dissertation.
Well, I'm reasonably comfortable where we're going, okay, within the plan. And I think, there's a very practical approach here. As I think everybody's got to work collectively together. I think the big thing for me is just to allow the community to have a little bit of buy-in during the time. They are feeling a little bit isolated, and I get that from RSA more than anything. Just people asking why the high rates and just asking questions. So I feel that if we can get some more buy-in from communication, I'm not putting too much pressure on Lisa, hopefully. But I do feel that that is just something to help with a little bit. And the other thing was that some of the community want to actually participate in the environment. And I just go put our last community board and their proposal from John Wood, just as an example. That was just looking at a fence which could be replaced rather than having it ripped down and replaced completely at Memorial Park. Could have been repaired for minimal money.
So Lou, can I just ask a question? I know you're trying to move around the table, Mayor Susan, but when we are still developing up the LTP and we're bringing optionality to you, we're testing assumptions with you, we're still running through the numbers. I'm just curious to understand, and obviously you've done a few of these, Lou, this isn't your first rodeo, how we go about safely engaging with the community. We obviously go out when we're ready and, and we do some swanky campaign and comms and stuff, and we will be doing that. And to Liz's point about FAQs, but how do you propose we do that while we're still in the process of developing the LTP? Information is moving and shifting. And I mean, it's a complex beast, right? It's a complex thing for us all to get our heads around, let alone if you're popping in and out as a community member. Sure, making sure that meetings are online, having an open gallery. Are there other ways that you think we could be engaging or doing things differently, Lou? I'm curious to understand the how we would do that in response to your feedback.
That's a good question. And I honestly feel that we want to actually perhaps have even councillors that belong, go out and talk to the clubs, the Rotary Club, Lions Club, go and talk to these people. Just have a, we've got, for example, next week, I think it is on Wednesday, the RSA Women's Division, and I'm going to speak to that and talk about rates. I'm going to say to them that it was inflation. It's been the fact that we've faced so many increased in costs that has come to us, and it's collectively because we're a high growth council. And this is the things that they haven't been told. The media, I know what you say, you put it in the media, but when you get out there and speak to them and answer their questions individually, I think that helps. And that's what I was going to propose.
So do you need some help from us? Would it be useful if we were to prepare a little bit of an elevator pitch, your 60-second, 90-second, your 4 bullet points? You can pull it out of your wallet before you roll into a building and have it laminated, and there's your 4 bullet points. Would that be useful?
Absolutely, for everyone, because we're all on the same page.
Okay,
and
yeah,
we're all
you've all got
saying,
the same.
we're all consistent in our response.
Yeah, we can.
And that's critical.
Yeah, we'll draft something up, we'll test it with a few of you, and then we'll whip something out for you. It's a really good point, Lou. Thank you.
Yeah, Andrew.
Thank you. This is a bit of a. I said to Yolanda just here quietly under my breath, they've been told, they just don't listen. But the thing is, it's not that they don't listen on purpose. Look, when I retired from my accounting practice and bought a store in 1999, and the first thing that really hit me was once the decision had been made, whenever I was in the car with the radio on, I heard nothing but ads from furniture shops. And it's like, these bastards have just started, advertising now but of course the thing is, when your wavelength is not there, you don't hear it. And that's where most of our residents are most of the time. It's just not registering on the wavelength because they don't have an interest at that point. So and that's really difficult to counter. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks.
By a red Carol.
And that's not because you got Facebook on and it's heard you talking and suddenly it starts trying to sell you jeans that you were mentioning last week. Yeah, anyway, I digress. Thanks, Lou. On to you, Bruce. Give us a penny for your thoughts.
I totally agree with what was said before, and Andrew, and when Steph was saying that, and I think a majority of people that I deal with aren't interested in. Okay, we're a big rates hike and we can't do anything about it. But as I said before, I've had not one complaint from my rural ratepayers. I was quite pleased to see the indicated properties just having a little squizzard at the moment on my valuations, 11% or something like that, and down to 6%. That's quite heartening. So yeah, no, another thing I'll finish up with that. I thought I'd never go through another long-term plan again, but I must somewhere went wrong.
Dale Marie.
And from the guys who have done a couple of rodeos to the girl who's on her first one. For me, I'm still supported by and guided by you guys that have done this, and especially our kaimahi that are working over and beyond, trying to get us information, respond to our numerous and thousands of requests, especially on weekends and nights, which I think is out the gate. For me, of course, as explained the other day, I don't like the rates rises, particularly for the Indigenous and those of our whānau that are really going to struggle. And I mean retired whānau, everybody that's on benefits, they will still be affected by our rates rises, landlords, all of that. It all gets offset. So I'm fine with the way that we're tracking. When I can see the rest of everybody else is upset, I probably need to be a bit more upset. But because I'm not, on numbers is not my skill set, I'm relying on everybody else to help with that guidance. So I can't be more grateful to our kaimahi that are doing a superb job for us. So tēnā koutou, I'm happy.
Thanks, Dale Marie. Bill.
Yeah, tai toko, the kōrero. I just, the thing that was the other day when we talked about those that need, if there were people that needed assistance, ratepayers, making sure that we really stress that there is assistance there. So I was interested in what Ken was saying about there having not been a big increase in the people that were saying that they couldn't get to their rates and were needing that assistance. So I just want to know in the same way as Dale Marie does that if assistance is required, how we go about doing that. That'd be I think the foremost in the communications I'd like to see. Kia ora.
I thank you, Bill. Philip, the birthday boy from yesterday.
Didn't even sing it. I mean, I don't want to harp on too much, but you know, we've talked about it a lot today. Is listening to the community, working with our community, and things like that. And I think you know, with the sports fields, there's a lot of commentary out there with the community around that, and you know, it's probably the perception or the view is to. So the statement that gets used a lot is getting back to basics and putting our time and energy into the basics or the important things like Cambridge connections, like the water tower, things like that, rather than something with regards to the sports fields and what have you, which is probably not an important item at the moment. But, you know, it's listening to the community about that and working with them on that too. So, yeah, that's what I've got to say. And just getting your head around all this stuff as well, constantly.
Cheers, thanks for that, Phil. Liz.
Look, I guess some of the things going around in my head at the moment, what does lean actually mean? I think we all have different versions. One community member will think lean means, you know, we're scraping, you know, the skin off our bones. Others will, you know, think of it very differently. So I'm quite nervous about some of the messaging that might be going out because it all means, for everyone, it means something different. But I absolutely acknowledge that we have bigger responsibilities for the health, well-being and economic parts of it for our district. You know, that's a really big part of this as well. And we're kind of guiding our district through the next 10 years post-COVID. You know, that's not easy either. I really want some of Roger's questions answered. I think there's for me still a little bit of a hole around some parts, some of the questions which I know are going to get answered in the fullness of time. So one of the things, the staffing, the new 21 new positions, I don't even know if that was the right number or not, but I really want to understand what the organisational chart looks like now, because even though we are heading into, we've got a new CEO, Steph, and you've got, plans and you've got to get your feet under the table. We are still responsible for this LTP. We're signing it off. So I need to know what does our organisational structure look like, and where are those positions largely going. So I think that would be really helpful for me. I need to be able to hand on heart tell our communities that this is, we are being financially prudent and kind of knowing, that 21 number seemed big to me, but it's probably not. And I'm sure it's absolutely justifiable, but I'd just like to know kind of where that is. And we haven't gone out to the community yet. I think I'm with you, Andrew. It's not on people's radars, even though we have sent a few press releases out. The 16% hasn't hit most people's homes. It'll come out when we do our great, comms plan. It'll come out next year, and that's when we'll actually see the rubber hit the road. But I don't think the penny's dropped yet. It's kind of where I'm at.
Cool. Thanks for those observations, Liz. Moving. Andrew, and then I'll go, round here, and then I'll hit the screen.
Yep. Am I happy we have to go out with a 16% rate rise? No, I'm not. But am I happy that it can be explained properly? Unfortunately, yes, I am. And look, I think our team here has gone back and, looked at everything they can, 4 times? What more can you do? Really? It's, Lou said, you've got inflation, you've got the increase in values of projects making our asset values so much more than they were, and we've got a rate for depreciation on that. There's any number of things that are, it's well able to be accounted for. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are. And I don't think this process could have been any more robust. So, well done.
Thanks, Andrew. Claire.
Very similar as well. I appreciate all the hard work that's been put in, and I feel that everything's been done, to explain why we do need the 16% average rates rise, which I'm not particularly happy with, but am totally committed to looking after our business. I mean, I do think, if we don't do that, we're not looking after our business. So that's, but I do support what Liz has said about understanding that we really are, as lean as possible, and getting Roger's questions answered as well, because I think it's really important for us as a major question asker, that if you ask a question, you do get it, the information that you need to help you understand it. Something that I am worried about are the big water users, because I think that that would be something that I might, if that's not resolved, I might say I can't support this. So that's probably one of my bottom lines. And I've asked about that. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Claire. Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I like Lou's and Steve's answer to that whole little bullet points, a few things we can hang some good answers off. I love the way the staff has actually gone back multiple times and actually shown tangible reduction in what could have been to what now is in terms of the rates rise. I guess the other thing is, the more desirable a community or communities are to live in, it's often because of the people and the amenities. And unfortunately, the amenities, they are capital items, and the more capital items as a district we have, the more amenity we have, the more depreciation we have. So this is, I guess, a victim of our own success. And in terms of that, I hope it doesn't, I don't want people to stop thinking there is more costs coming in years to come, because we're going to keep growing where we live with great amenity. And that's just part of living in a great place. The other thing with a little radar on the future is you know, as councillors, we shouldn't be focused on 3 years. This is 9 years. And so, you know, we've talked about the people sitting here in 3 years and 6 years' time, not spending all the money that's unspent, and just being, I guess, aware of the situation out in the community, but we can't stop spending money either. And rates are one bill. They're one bill that comes in every month. But this year 4 thing where we sort of jumped from 303 rating units to 873, and Ken, you've talked about an average from year 4 to 9, and, you know, just on sort of $3,500 rate average, it's about $2.2 million of income that we're just going to have to keep our eye on that, because that's about 2% roughly, isn't it? Of rate. So it's looking now, but it's realising as councillors, this is not a 3-year plan. This is a 9-year plan. And what goes in here is for 9 years. And I don't think it's fair on the community or those that come after us to just look at only 3 years, because, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Pettit. Marcus.
Right. Yeah, the same as what the others think, really, and the fact that we're in the same boat as a lot of other councils as well. It's not just us in a sinking ship. What else? Well, no, that's probably not the right words, but yeah. But and you know, the 16% is justified, and we've gone over it, and we know why we're here, which is good. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcus. I will go online now. Monty and then Roger.
Okay. Yeah, look, no one likes imposing on ratepayers this series of rates increases that we're imposing upon them. And I'm mindful of, you know, the impacts on individuals and households of that. But having said that, this is a very particular set of circumstances. Positions.
Monty, we lost you for a bit there. You said you're mindful that. Oh, we keep losing you. You're playing statues. How about we move to Roger and we'll come back to you, Monty? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how Monty's the same thing happened as I had a couple of weeks ago when I froze when I was in the midstream. Yeah, look, I really appreciate the support of Claire and Liz in supporting the questions that I asked. And as all councillors are aware, there's still, you know, a raft of questions there that I would like to have answers to. And I appreciate that there are others, therefore perhaps a written response to be shared with all councillors would be really good. I take Mike's point there about looking at a 9-year plan, but I still really am concerned about year 1 and the 16% and the impact that it has on those more unfortunate and the less advantaged in our community, where this 16% is going to hit them hard. One thing in looking at those indicator properties, and I'm not so sure anybody's mentioned, maybe Claire mentioned in terms of the high water uses, but I'm really concerned about the high level of rates in that year across all commercial and industrial properties. And I'm just worrying, you know, we have got huge growth potential in Hautapu and at the airport precinct. And I'm just concerned about the message that sends out when we've got an 18, 17, 20%, 19% increase in rates on commercial industrial properties. I am concerned about that. So, yeah, I still have continued concerns about the level of rates increase. Thanks.
Steph, did you want to answer that? Thank you for sharing that, Roger.
Yeah.
Steph.
Roger, just in response to your acknowledgement of Claire and Liz's point, what I'm going to ask you to do is meet with our team one-on-one to go through the questions you've got, because lots of the questions you ask then lead to other questions, and we can do ping pong and badminton for weeks in terms of bouncing back more and more written stuff. Noting the pressure that my team's under, what I'm going to ask you to do is meet with them, Roger, go through your questions, and when that's elicited and we've got to the bottom of some of your concerns and they're able to provide answers, we'll then distribute that to all of the elected members. But I think we need to move beyond an email exchange to a one-on-one sit down.
We're never going to agree on that, Steph, because one of the things that Ken left out of his letter to me was that at the time he spoke to me, I did say I would prefer a written response. And the reason there is that I can sit down, I can consider it, I can go back, I can think about it, and I can rationalize it in my own mind. And I don't get that opportunity when I'm sitting down one-on-one. I can't go back and re-look at a face-to-face meeting.
So Roger, I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate that's the way that you process information and you intake information. We're not saying that the one-on-one is the end of it. What we're saying is that my team are under extraordinary time pressure, Roger, and for this to get to the bottom of the questions you've got, they would just like time with you in the first instance. We will then go away and prepare written response. But it is a game of ping pong, and I'm trying to look after our team in terms of the very precious time they've got. And we want to make sure that the answers we give are the best answers we can give. So I'm just asking that in the first instance, but I'm very clear that different people have different learning styles and different processing styles. So I acknowledge that.
I'll try and summarize those questions in a simpler form then.
I think what I'm saying to you, Roger, is that I'm going to limit the email exchange to stop this back and forth. And I'd really appreciate it even if you could have a Zoom call with Ken and Yolanda, but we'll figure that offline. We'll take that offline and have that conversation. But I want to assure the other councillors that once we get to the bottom of those questions, we will share that information.
Thanks, Steph. Monty, you're back with us.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be quick. Look, I'm comfortable that this plan is the optimal plan for us, for the organisation and our ratepayers. If I didn't think that, I would have said so a long time ago.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah, to the point. Yeah. Look, I'm delighted to see that we've finished before our allotted time. And so unless anybody really wants to sit around and chew the fat, I think we can safely say that this workshop has come to an end. Thank you once again to staff for the huge number of hours you're putting in, literally day and night, and definitely over the weekends, much appreciated. And thank you to elected members for your considered preparation prior to this, because we move a lot faster if we're all prepared, and I really appreciate that. So without